Mr. Rice. Okay. Welcome. It is 5:30 p.m. and I call to order the April 22nd, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting. Do I hear a motion to enter executive session?
Madam Chair, I move to enter executive session to discuss employment recommendations and updates and to discuss the Lexington County First Steps lease agreement.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Mr. Pizzuti. All those in favor? Any opposed? And the motion carries. We will now enter executive session.
go, first thing, go straight to the office, the bus hub, and I check my bus inside and out with several steps that we do just to make sure that it's going to be safe in operating order, and then crank the bus up, make sure it's going to crank, check all my lights, all that while it's running. It's usually about a 5 to 7 minute inspection before we leave. Make sure I pull out at a specific time each day, because the kids are generally, especially as it gets colder, we don't want them standing out there too long waiting for us. And we don't want to start early too and have to sit there and wait for them to come out of their home.
Hey Paisley. I
like to be that first positive. I smile at them. I ask every student and tell them good morning, and I tell them to have a good day or a good weekend. The route usually lasts right at about an hour. The average time on the bus for half of the bus is 30 to 40 minutes, but the majority of them, it's not too long of a commute. After that, we bring the school bus back if we don't have what we call shuttles, and that's taking the kids over to one of the career centers or the college center. It's different each day. Every single day I pull in here, I'm like, first off, just thankful that I got back safe, and we got everybody home safe. And then the next thing on my mind is securing my bus, making sure it's ready to go the next morning. I'm always trying to be a positive influence. I always try to teach them something creative, something that's world related, something that's going to carry on with them later in life.
Every child achieves something. You know, they may not meet the absolute end goal of a math classroom, and they may not solve a problem completely perfectly, but there are pieces of things that they have done correctly along the way that you can encourage and praise them for. And so those children are more likely to learn from you and to learn from their mistakes and build on from it than if you didn't take the time to do those things with them.
When I started off in teaching, I didn't start as a special ed teacher. I was an instructional assistant in a kindergarten classroom back in 2003. And in doing that, I realized that, you know, kids were already being labeled. And I didn't want that. I wanted in kindergarten so we can get those kids right there where their weaknesses are, and then we could really help them.
I still think that we should learn through play, and we should have fun, and they should be able to talk to each other and interact with each other. And you'll see my silliness and my playfulness, and just kind of tying it all together to where at some point we typically hit something that each kid likes and that they feel safe enough to try different things.
My teaching philosophy is that students learn best when they feel loved, so I make it a priority to build relationships with my students as soon as the school year begins. And I've realized that as I do that, they want to do their best and show their best because we have that trusting relationship.
I was inspired to become a teacher by my mother, who worked in special ed. And my first experiences with students with disabilities were as a home health care provider. And I provided respite services for students whose families needed to go to the grocery store or go on a date night. And that fostered my love of working with kids with disabilities.
I create a positive learning environment in my classroom by instilling in each student that they are loved and cared for, and that they have a sense of belonging in our classroom, and that starts the very first day of school whenever they enter through the room.
A day in the life of a social worker, you can have a day planned and it can go completely the opposite. You can have, meetings planned, and then sometimes just issues come up with families. There's certain referrals that come in that need more attention. So it's just on a day-to-day basis of what the needs are. We service throughout the whole district. I think it's just important to know that overall we're here to help our families and students. I think there's a stereotype of a conjunction between social work and automatically DSS, and that's not the case. We're here to service our students and families. We're here to help in any way that we can and we're able to. So more than anything, I want families to know that we're here to support them and to support their students. And that's our priority, to make sure the students have a successful education. We play a crucial role. We're essentially the collaborators between the school, family, and community services. I think you really need that middle person, because sometimes, families might not know that we offer certain things, or they might not know that there's something in the community that can service their needs. So I think as our role, as what I've seen that I worked here, it's really important for us to be here. You establish these relationships with parents and you're able to guide them and help them. We're here to advocate for you. We're here for your students. We're here to service your students and families. And essentially, whatever the need may be, I want parents and students to know that someone is here to help you.
I really think it starts with authenticity. You have to be an authentic person. Students can see right through that, especially the younger ones. They can tell whether you're putting on a show or not. And authenticity also carries over into the subject matter. When you're teaching Spanish, they need to have authentic learning experiences. They're going to know the difference of whether they can use this or not in the future.
When I was in second grade, I didn't know how to read, and my second grade teacher saw those signs. So every recess and after school, she helped me with intervention. And through that, I got where I am now in my life and career. Without that, I probably would have gotten lost in the system. And so that kind of led me to teach.
Ever since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to become a teacher. I remember sitting in Miss Harper's second grade class at Midway Elementary School and just knowing that I wanted to become her. I became a teacher, and I want to instill those leadership skills in my students. I want them to be better people.
I know I'm making a difference in the life of a student, not just the grade they're with me, is when parents reach back out and say that their child is excited about learning or excited about reading or eager to pick up a pencil and write, and that they become that eager learner.
To empower students to be change makers, I think the most important thing that I can teach them is just genuine kindness. When we can instill self-confidence in these kids and the ability to show empathy and listen well to those around them, I think we would see just amazing changes both in our community and in the world.
Building relationships with students. For me, that's one of my top priorities, just because I feel like in order to help the students make progress, they have to feel like I'm there for them, I'm connecting with them, I believe in them. And so by building those strong relationships with them, they, try harder for me and they're more motivated to make progress on their goals.
They help your brain grow and they teach other kids how to read.
They're really important because they help students be able to find books so they can increase their knowledge. In case they can't find something on the internet, they can help them find it in a book.
I don't learn everything I need to know from my teachers, and the library is a good place to learn, other stuff about life.
Thank you, Lexington 1 school librarians, for helping us become better readers and creative thinkers. Without you, we wouldn't be the knowledgeable students we are.
I taught as an assistant teacher in college at a special needs summer camp. And afterwards, when I went home and I thought about how much joy these kids exude in spite of their circumstances and what they go home to, it really made me contemplate and think that I get to be a part of that. And that's kind of my inspiration.
Last year I took a young man to state for Skills USA, and he was an OCP student. He was with us just to learn a career. He had autism. So we trained and trained and trained, and he worked and worked and worked. He walked across the stage with a gold medal. And we went on to nationals. He came in 6th out of the nation.
I feel that community within the classroom is my priority. I like to build those relationships with my students and then build them with them, with each other. I serve students from a variety of homerooms, so connecting as a group is just very important to me.
As a teacher, teaching is all about providing students with opportunities, whether it's in the classroom or outside of the classrooms through extra opportunities. It also is fully about giving each individual student the support they need to help them be successful.
When they tell me that I made an impact on them, I think is what makes me the proudest. It's not looking at data and test scores and things like that. It's more of knowing that I made an impact to them, and that makes me feel like I did what I wanted to accomplish.
My heart is kindergarten. Like, I love this age group. I love just everything about it. Letting them make mistakes, letting them learn from them, talking through it, being able to allow them opportunities to not only be kind and generous and helpful and just a good human.
I was inspired to become a teacher when I was growing up. I saw a lot of my friends didn't have an adult at home who would advocate for them. So when I became an adult, I wanted to be that advocate and eventually empower my students with knowledge to advocate for themselves and go out into the world and make sure that they have everything that they need and they're ready.
We would have a lot of events in the mornings. I would go to an elementary school and we would just welcome all the students as they walked into the school. It was always a fun time because you just got to see the kids walk in with a big smile on their face, and that really brightened up your day. And then during the school day, you'd go around, do different events around the school, whether it was with the special needs kids or if it was a pep rally, anything around that sort. And it was just always a great time. And then at the end of the day, obviously, you have any sporting events, especially Friday nights with the football games. That was always a great time. You put on the suit, kind of put on the hands. With the head, you had these straps that you had to put on so it wouldn't fall off. So you put your arms to the head straps, put it to the body, and then once you put all that on, you put the feet on, and then you put the clothes on. We always had a zipper in the back of the shirts because Wiley was so big, couldn't get over the head. So you had the shirt, shorts, and he didn't wear shoes. He was just letting the dogs out.
The Mascot program has been something that we have taken a hold of and made it a very important piece of Lexington High School, and the kids that are involved in it, they love that they're able to be in costume and nobody know who they are, but they're still able to be involved and have some fun.
It was almost like you were a superhero. Nobody knew who you were, nobody knew your identity, but yet you were doing so much stuff in the community and you're getting out and just seeing so many people. I was sitting in the hallway before we graduated, and Miss Izzy came up to me. She gave me the hands and the feet, asked me if I was ready, and honestly I wasn't. I didn't want to let it go, but I was also ready to show everybody who it was. I put on the hands and feet, I got a picture with her. Everybody around me was kind of in shock. They're like, no way, you were Wiley? I should have known. And I was just getting all sorts of different responses, and it was just really fun. And then you finally walk out into this big stadium, and not everybody knows yet, but you're kind of like waving around. People kind of start like pointing, looking, and then whenever you
All right, I think we are about ready to begin.
Lots of good conversation tonight. Yes. Everybody's excited to see one another.
Okay. Is my microphone on? Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Okay.
They're just talkative.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting. Do I hear a motion to conclude executive session?
Madam Chair, I move we conclude executive session and return to general session.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I call to order the April 22nd, 2025 board meeting. The district is up. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Pizzuti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Now I call to order the April 22nd, 2025 board meeting. The district is in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act by notifying the media of the date, time, and place of the meeting. The district tapes the meeting for accuracy in preparing the minutes. I now yield the floor to Mrs. Flashnick.
Ladies and gentlemen, after the pledge, we will pause for a moment of silence. During this time, we invite you to reflect on the life of Jose Maria Gonzalez Lanzares, a student from Pine Ridge Middle School who tragically lost his life in a school bus accident last week. Our thoughts are with everyone in Lexington County School District 2 who has been impacted by this heartbreaking event. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve one administrative recommendation for 2024-2025?
Madam Chair, I move we approve one new administrative recommendation for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve 24 certified staff recommendations for the 2025-2026 school year?
Madam Chair, I move we approve 24 certified staff recommendations for the 2025-2026 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve 10 administrative recommendations for the 25-26 school year?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve 10 new administrative recommendations for the 2025-2026 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve 2,179 certified staff contract renewals for the 2025-2026 school year?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve 2,179 certified staff renewals for the 2025-2026 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. We definitely are excited about that.
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a motion regarding the Lexington County First Steps lease agreement?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize administration to enter into a lease agreement with Lexington County First Steps with the terms as discussed in executive session.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. We do not have any other actions stemming from executive session. So we will move right along into new business. We're just jumping right along. Oh, did I skip something? Oh, It wasn't pink, it was white. That's why I skipped over it. We're actually getting to do the best part of the evening, our honors and achievements. So please remember to grab a copy of your Proof Positive newsletter, which highlights our honorees. That newsletter was on the sign-in table as you came in the door. Once we finish, we will give our honorees a chance to leave before we resume the rest of the meeting. Dr. Postlewaite and Dr. Price, will you please step down front? Honorees, when you hear your name called, please come down and stand with Dr. Postlewaite and Dr. Price as we tell the audience all about you and your achievements. All right, here we go. Let's kick off our awards with an incredibly talented young athlete from White Knoll Middle School. We are thrilled to honor Logan Crooks. Logan, please join us up front, accompanied by your fantastic coach, Jolene Walter. Logan recently demonstrated incredible skill and focus at the South Carolina National Archery in the school's state tournament. Logan took home first place in the middle school boys division in the bullseye category, achieving an absolutely astounding score of 286. I wonder, what's the highest score you can even get? 300, so that's like almost perfect. 286, he said 300 is the highest you can get. Logan, congratulations on this outstanding achievement. Congratulations again. Next, we invite Wilson Oxner from Gilbert High up to the front. Wilson recently earned the Daughters of the American Revolution Good Citizen State Award winner for his award-winning essay. Wilson's exceptional essay has earned him top honors at the district and state levels and has also triumphed in the entire Southeastern Division. This incredible achievement means Wilson is heading to nationals. At the national level, Wilson has the opportunity to win a $10,000 scholarship and attend the Continental Congress in Washington, D.C. Wilson, your dedication and insightful writing are truly commendable. Congratulations on this remarkable success. All right, now let's shift gears from the dramatic arts to the thrilling world of innovation and engineering to honor the Meadow Glen Middle Robo-Gators. Will the following team member representatives please join us up front as I call your names? James Spur, Sarah Lynn Fan, Kara Hodges, Hanya Khan, Shamika Rajesh, Owen Sims, Cosette Wong, Benjamin Zong. The team is coached by Cliff Roberts and Amy Dent. Please come join your students. The RoboGators won first place at the first LEGO Regional South Carolina State Championship. The RoboGators will now proudly represent South Carolina in the FLL Sunshine Invitational in Daytona Beach this June. What an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations, RoboGators. Congratulations. Now let's turn our attention to the strategic battlefield of the mind, the chessboard. We are incredibly excited to celebrate a history-making achievement by the River Bluff High chess team, our newest state champions. Will the following team representatives please join me as I call your names? Dear Chetta, Sanjay Kodiswaran, Chandler Perry, and Alex Ziegler. And will team advisor Matt Sawicks please join us as well? And Principal Jacob Smith. The River Bluff High chess team didn't just win the 2025 South Carolina High School Chess Championship. They conquered. In a stunning display of skill and determination, they triumphed over more than 90 schools and remarkably ended a 22-year-long victory streak held by another school. Whoa, that's so cool. I know, right? This momentous victory marks the first time ever that a school from the Midlands has claimed the state chess championship title. Gators, your strategic brilliance has made history. Congratulations on this phenomenal achievement. Now, to conclude our celebration of outstanding student achievements, we turn our attention to a team that embodies civic engagement and a deep understanding of our nation's foundations. We are honored to have with us some representatives from the River Bluff High We the People team. Did you know that River Bluff High School We the People team is made up of 34 Bahraini seniors? We were not sure who could be with us tonight, so we asked all the student representatives to come to the front. And joining these knowledgeable students up front, please welcome their dedicated advisors, Lindsay Dooley, Michael Burgess, and Courtney Dove, and Principal Jacob Smith. Woo, we got quite the crowd up here tonight. All right, once again, the River Bluff High School We the People team has demonstrated exceptional intellect and dedication, earning them the first place victory at the We the People State Championship. This impressive competition challenges students to showcase their profound knowledge of the U.S. Constitution and government through engaging mock congressional hearings. This remarkable team recently represented River Bluff High and the state of South Carolina on the national stage in Washington, D.C. We are beyond proud of the hard work, dedication, and exceptional representation of River Bluff High School by the incredible We the People team. Congratulations on your continued success. Just keep smiling. Oh, I know. Oh, I missed it. Adam, smile with your mama. Okay, we would like to honor one of our staff members. Will Rosa Cerna please come forward? Rosa was recently named the South Carolina, I think, is Miss Wood coming up here too? She is, perfect. Oh, okay, wonderful. Rosa was recently named the South Carolina Association of School Nurses 2025 LPN of the Year. For the past 2 years, as a valued float nurse, Rosa has consistently demonstrated an exceptional commitment to the well-being of our students and has emerged as a true leader within our nursing team. Rosa is a powerful advocate for our students, ensuring that all staff members are well informed about their crucial medical needs. She generously mentors her peers, fostering a collaborative and supportive environment. Her sharp critical thinking skills, especially in emergency situations, provide invaluable reassurance. Rosa's dedication extends to actively improving student access to vital care, and her bilingual abilities are an incredible asset to our diverse school communities here in Lexington. Known for building strong, trusting relationships, Rosa consistently uses evidence-based practices to deliver the highest quality of care to our students. Rosa, congratulations on this well-deserved honor. Thank you for all you do. Congratulations. We would like to recognize the principals and assistant principals who are in attendance with us tonight. Would you please stand? I saw so many of you. Thank you all for taking the time tonight to help us recognize our amazing students, staff, and schools. We have some very talented individuals in our district, and we love sharing their achievements with you. Now, at this time, if you need to leave, we will give you a quick and quiet moment to do that. Oh, my hand's going to be wet, Adam. Congratulations. Oh, sure, yes. We could try that, right? Okay. All right, we are going to move on to item 8.0, which is new business, and that's the first reading of our fiscal year 2026 general fund budget, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Price.
Good evening, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Tonight, we bring to you a proposal, or several different options for a proposal for our 25-26 general fund budget. This is our first reading, and as you know, we will have 3 readings to complete before it is finalized. So, let's make sure we're on. There we go. So as a reminder, the board established some priorities for establishing the budget for 25-26. Those are listed here. Prioritize the Salary Study Committee's recommendations. That was an effort that took place earlier in the school year. Maintain Lexington One's low class size ratios. Develop a balanced budget with no or minimal millage increase, depending on the level of state funding we receive. Explain the accumulation of fund balance to assist the board in making decisions about the use of fund balance. And then develop a prioritized list of must-dos, would-like-to-dos, and other priorities. And then finally, use a realistic but safe fill rate as part of our budget projections. And we feel like we've been able to check off all of those boxes for the priorities that were given to us. So as a quick recap, at our last meeting when we went through the first presentation, we divided the categories up into several different areas. First were federal mandates in order to keep us in compliance. Those items were listed here. The next section was state level mandates and compliance matters. After that, we had one ESSER cliff item, so one item that we were able to use ESSER funding for one final year, and that is coming to an end. And then the remaining items in this category were fixed costs, just kind of the cost of doing business. As those prices go up, we have to budget accordingly for them. Then we had a category called Lexington One Standards, where we've established kind of a protocol of how we do things and why we do things. And in order to be consistent with different items that have been added or adjusted in the past. We have these items listed in the Lexington 1 standards. After that comes the Salary Study Committee recommendations. And in the options that we're going to see in just a bit, we're going to have one option that's a little bit different based on the salary study recommendations than all the rest. And I'll explain that a little bit further as we get there. The next category was the would like to do's. After we get by the must do's and the sustaining our standard, then we get to the things that we would like to do that would be a real request for us to expand on. And then after that, there was one final section of other requests that came in, that there was an inquiry or some suggestions that were mentioned, and so we've added those items for consideration, and the dollar amounts attached to these items are also provided in your board document and in a spreadsheet that's linked in the presentation. So now we get down to the different options that we're going to ask you to consider. The first is option 1. And this is kind of the barest of bones option that we're going to present to you. As you know, whenever the Salary Study Committee began their work, they were working off of a recommendation from the governor and the state superintendent at the time to raise the beginning level teacher salary by $3,000 to get it to $50,000 for a first-year teacher. Since that time, the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee have met, and they are recommending not a $3,000 increase, but a $1,500 increase. And so this option 1 is a $1,500 increase rather than a $3,000 increase. And I'll go into a few more specifics in just a moment. But in option 1, it would include all of our federal and state mandates to keep us in compliance, the one ESSER cliff item, our fixed cost increases, and then some but not all of the Lexington 1 standards. There were a couple of items that were excluded from the Lexington 1 standards. So I'm going to jump back here for just a second. So if you look at item number 47, the student data specialist number of workdays, we were going to increase those from 220 to 230. That item is not included in option 1. And then also number 57, an elementary behavior interventionist, to add one more interventionist there. That item is not included in option 1. All of the other Lexington 1 standards are there. So the student data specialists would, if that's not included, they would continue to work at 220 days per year rather than 230. And we already have elementary behavior interventionists, but we were looking to bring down the case size ratio that those interventionists work with. If that's not added, then they will continue to operate at a higher student to interventionist ratio. Going back, now looking at the salary study recommendations, this one was based off of a $50,500 starting cell block for beginning teachers rather than a $52,000. So that would be $1,500 more than the current starting salary for teachers. The $1,500 would then be added to every cell. One of the recommendations of the Salary Study Committee was to kind of correct the differences in percentages of increase from one step to the next. And you may recall that when the Salary Study Committee presented their recommendations, even with a $3,000 increase, there were still a few cells that we couldn't correct, but we would work with those few folks that were in those categories. With only a $1,500 increase, we couldn't come close to correcting the step consistency that we had tried to. So in option 1, it would be a $1,500 increase to the to every teacher cell, but we would not be able to address the step challenge that we were trying to meet. So that would have to wait until another year. In addition to that, in option 1, the only other things that would be included would be item number 39, which is a support staff salary increase to give them their step for the next year. And then item number 45, which is an administrative salary increase. And that would include a 1% increase for our administrators. And you may recall that one of the top recommendations of the Salary Study Committee is that if we're going to do raises for some employees, we should do a raise for all. By doing those categories, 38, 39, and 45, we would be able to touch all employees with some amount of a raise. So that's the difference in option 1 compared to what I'm going to present next. The only other item that's listed here is item number 52. And if I go back to that slide, these are the middle school academic interventionists. And you may recall at our last meeting, you voted to give contingency funding to those positions out of the fund balance. So you've kind of already given us the approval to move forward. So this includes that item from this list, but nothing else. So that's your option 1 outlook. And if you look up above the blue boxes at the top where it says projected fund balance use, that would require an estimated allocation out of fund balance of about $2.5 million to help us balance the budget with option 1. Moving forward to option 2. So in option 2, you got the federal and state mandates, the ESSER cliff, the fixed cost increases, and now we have added all of the items of the Lexington 1 standards. All of those items have been added to this. In addition to that, we've now included all of the recommendations from the Salary Study Committee. That would include raising the beginning teacher's salary from $49,000 to $52,000. It would be a $3,000 increase from what it is right now. In addition to that, we were able to correct the scale discrepancy, the step discrepancy. And you may recall that the recommendation was to take teachers in years 1 through 5 and give them a 1.5%. Is that right? 1.5% increase for the first 5 years, and then every year after that would be a consistent 1.1% increase. And so folks would be able to know exactly how to calculate that moving forward. But then...
And so clarifying, when you say the $3,000 increase, that's increasing our starting salary
Correct.
to $52,000, just so people are aware not to expect every cell to increase by $3,000.
That is correct.
This is the year that we're fixing our steps.
Right, and each step after $52,000 for the first 5 years would be 1.5% from that starting amount forward. Perfect. Okay? It includes all of the Lexington 1 standards and those 4 positions in the would like to do. So that's option 2. So it takes our mandates, our standards, and the recommendation of the Salary Study Committee and stops right there. So if you look up at the projected fund balance use above the blue box, that would require a fund balance allocation of just over $8.3 million to balance the budget. Option 3 takes everything that you just saw in option 2 and adds all of the items from the would like to do category, which is this list here. So it takes everything that you've seen up to this point and then adds this group with it. So that's the difference between option 2 and option 3. Looking at the projected fund balance allocation for that option would take just over $10.6 million allocation from fund balance. And then option 4 includes everything that was on the list, including the other requests that are listed at the bottom in orange. And the projected fund balance allocation for option 4 would be right at $13.5 million. You have links here that shows what the operating budget would look like, and if I could get Daniel to click on option 2, 3, and 4 as an example so that we could take a look at that. You may be able to see that, but I can't. But if you scroll through this attachment that's provided for you, it lists a item-by-item cost prediction for each of the things that are listed there in all color-coded categories. So you've got that there for your reference, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. And if I can't answer, I've got Ms. Miller and members of SLT who may be able to answer specifics.
Board members, do you have thoughts, questions, comments that we can have to kind of continue guiding the district through this budget process?
I have one quick, just clarifying question versus what you just put on the screen and what is in front of us. So like looking in our administrative content where it says how much of the fund balance use it's going to take to balance the budget. Like option 3 as an example says 10.68 on the slide that we just looked at, but in here it says 11.1. Is that because we already approved some money?
I believe there's been some adjustments to the predictions, and since the administrative content was added, this page was updated, and probably the admin content doesn't reflect those latest
So our numbers
updates.
will be what you showed us on the screen, correct?
Correct.
Other board members?
Clarification. I know it's hard to kind of ascribe titles to these categories. When I hear the phrase would like to do, it just sounds like a nicety, but I have a feeling that this is more of a, we really, really, really need to do this, but I'm not going to say it's quite a Lexi 1 standard. Can you extrapolate on that a little bit more and delineate between that and other requests? Help me understand a little bit of the difference.
Sure. Daniel, could you go back to the slide presentation? So you're talking about this section here. So each one of these items probably has a different story about things that are not in place now that we've identified as something that we would like to do in order to either sustain high performance or address needs that have been identified that aren't currently being addressed, that we're finding ways to scrape together initiatives in order to make some things happen. But if these were approved, it would give us more flexibility and opportunity to continue to perform at a high level. So I'll give you an example. Item number 54, middle school assistant principals. You may recall that there was a request to add 3 assistant principals. Why 3? Well, of our 8 middle schools, 5 of them have a 3rd assistant principal. 3 of the schools do not, based on their enrollment. It's really challenging with all the demands that are placed on the shoulders of school leaders and administrators to meet all of those at a high level. If we were able to add a 3rd assistant principal at those remaining schools, it would give them more of the opportunity to meet all of those expectations. Assistant principals at schools are determined by the number of students that are enrolled there. So they have to get to a certain plateau in order to earn another assistant principal. Ms. Price probably doesn't like me saying it that way, but there's a threshold that you have to reach. And there we have 3 schools that are not there. So the challenges of running a middle school with 2 assistant principals rather than 3 is pretty daunting.
Dr. Price, could you name those 3 schools?
Yes, they are White Knoll Middle, Pleasant Hill Middle, and Meadow Glen Middle. Thank you. Meadow Glen, I knew you were going to speak up. So those are our 3 middle schools. And as you know, Dr. Postlethwaite and I and other members of SLT have been doing listening sessions at all of the schools. And one of the common trends that we've heard whenever we've visited these 3 schools in particular is how much they would appreciate that 3rd assistant principal. So this list not only includes items that are recommended by the senior leadership team, but it also includes requests that are coming from the principals. That request was from the number 1 request of all 8 middle school principals. The 5 high school principals, their top item that they were requesting was item number 55, to add an AP at each school. And our elementary principals' top request, I believe it was to add the math coaches. Right now, we have at least a half-time math coach at all of our schools. And we would like to make that a full-time position. As you've been following our trends in student performance since COVID, we've rebounded well in reading. We're still trying to catch up in math, and we've got work to do. And the work and the production that we've seen from our reading coaches, we hope to repeat with our math coaches. In addition to that, you see number 53, add a middle school athletic allocation. Right now, high schools get an athletic allocation. Our middle schools do not. They have to fund their athletics based off of what they sell at the gates and what they have in their discretionary fund. This would give them kind of a head start in establishing funding there. So each of these items have a different story. The items in the next category did not come as a recommendation from SLT, did not come as a recommendation from principals, but came as items of interest from, at some point, from someone that has come up in discussion through this process or in other forms of communication. So we wanted to do our due diligence and include those items and also attach the dollar amounts that go along with each of them. So that's the difference between the would like to do's and this category of other requests.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of piggybacking off of a couple of the examples you gave, it is a little, I guess, concerning. What is the plan if we approve those would like to do's with, Ms. Price, the deadline coming up? If we don't approve our budget till June, how will they be able to hire these principals and math coaches?
Well, we've been working very hard on a plan, hoping that this might be a possibility. So these wonderful people sitting out here have been busy working on some tentative suggestions and ideas, but it is going to be a tight deadline, so we are hoping for some guidance and some ideas tonight. But they do have some plans and suggestions for that. We have looked at some things tentative, pending the budget approval. We know we always have classroom positions, so we know that some of them that we could approve. We've talked about, like the administrative positions, that classroom positions are always going to come first. So we know that even if we approve some of those pending approval of the budget, that if classroom positions are not filled, that they would have to revert back to classrooms. They are aware of that and know that is a possibility. We are always going to make sure classroom positions are filled first. So we've discussed that with a lot of the principals out there. They have plans. We have tentative plans to make hiring happen very quickly. We have some times allotted on the calendar this week for a lot of them. We are going to be spending a lot of time together, and we are making it happen. We brought a lot of things to the board tonight, and we have a lot of plans to make that happen quickly. But we all know we're on a crunch, and they are all dedicated to making that happen as quickly as possible. It will be a tight timeline, but I think they are dedicated, as are we as a team, to make that happen, because we realize the importance for our district and for our schools to get the best and brightest here as quickly as possible. So if the board is gracious enough to grant that, I think they are dedicated and passionate and ready to make it happen, as are we. So
what I'm hearing is grant that prior to June.
Grant us permission to move forward, yes. Okay.
I have another comment board. I remember when we had our workshop and we talked about the starting salary. I remember us kind of all being on the same page about $52,000 as that starting salary so that we could clear up our steps. And so if that is what I'm remembering correctly, should we just kind of go ahead and tell the district, scratch option 1 and let's look at options 2, 3, and 4 just to kind of move the process along a little bit?
Yeah, I would concur with that.
Okay, I remembered you said something about it at the workshop, Mr. Pizzuti. Mr. Rice, you're the only one I'm not seeing with, or.
Yeah, I would say I think option 1 is not enough based on the need that we have now. So I would be looking at an option higher than that at this point.
Okay. 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 So.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can I ask for just some patience? I want to get some thoughts out there, and I wrote them down, so bear with me. So I wasn't just shooting from the hip. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the district staff for putting 4 options together because I know that took a lot of work, and we all recognize the complexity of what we're looking at and working on here for really the best interest of our students, but also for teacher and staff retention and recruitment. So thank you very much for that. Dr. Price and I have talked previously about aligning certain budget items with, I believe you used the term rubric. I refer to it as like performance metrics. And I think it's prudent for the board to work with staff on whichever option, if we're crossing option 1 off the table, 2, 3, or 4 that we work towards, looking at what items that we want to fund or approve and how we would make sure that that item is aligning to whatever performance indicators the district feels like are manageable, but also ones that we can look back and say that we had a measurable outcome to that particular expenditure. So that said, my current position would be in support of option 3, but with some adjustments. I think that option 3 strikes of all of them the best balance between addressing the needs that we have, but maintaining some financial responsibility without raising millage, and also using the fund balance to balance the budget for as long as possible. And I have a couple thoughts on some items I'm happy to share now if it's helpful on what I looked at that perhaps could be tailored back from option 3, or I can stop there.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, and this may be more of a question, 50 and 51. So what slide would that be?
So
here we go. So special education academic coach, special education behavior coach. Were these addressed in the salary study committee at all, and how are they different than some of the other, I guess, more priority recommendations that the salary committee provided to us for special education?
So these positions were not a part of the salary study committee's work, but these items were identified as needs through the senior leadership team. Ms. Gaskins is prepared to share a little bit about those specific items because she's the one who brought those forward. So Ms. Gaskins.
Happy to. So currently we have one special ed academic coach and one behavior coach that serves all of our schools. And through our state interviews this year with special education teachers, the work we've done with our Parent Advisory Council for Special Education, the listening tours, overwhelmingly, we hear the need for more professional learning for special education teachers, more support. And because of the nature of their job and them needing to be in their schools, the majority of that support needs to be job embedded support in their classrooms and at their schools, which is why we're recommending the behavior coaches to be able to serve teachers side by side.
So for the community that doesn't speak this language daily, a coach is for the teachers or the staff, not for the students, correct?
That is correct. So they work with the teacher to make sure the teacher has all the tools and support they need to serve the students.
Okay. The other 2 items.
Ms. Leshnick, I can see how that is confusing though, because that coach works with teachers, but a few lines down, the elementary math coaches work with the students, correct? Or do they just, students and teachers?
They work mainly with teachers. I mean, they will do model lessons and observing classrooms to give teachers feedback, but their main role is also the capacity building of teachers for both the instructional practices, but also the content knowledge.
So that's different than like a reading intervention teacher.
So if we compare it to literacy, we have a literacy coach, but we also have an interventionist that teaches students reading skills.
Okay.
So when we see coach, that's pretty much dealing with teachers.
For adults. Working with adults,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My thought on 50 and 51 would be perhaps we would add them maybe later, amend the budget later in the year after we have prioritized the special education recommendations from the salary study committee. Because what I fear is that we're not sure which is working best. It's just a lot to do. I'm thinking about all the hiring, all the how we get this done, and just the numbers. At some point, we have to, I don't think we can do everything we all want. I would like to go with option 4, ideally, but I don't think that's realistic. So that's just a thought there.
When you say like amend the budget later in the year, like middle of the school year later in the year, or?
I would defer to the experts to know, like, when would we be wanting to hire these positions ideally?
I think that's what Mrs. Price was referring to earlier. If we are going to get the best applicants available, we need to move forward as quickly as possible. We've got contract deadlines that are coming up, and if folks are not moving out of a teaching position into these, if they are, then we've got to backfill those positions. And so in order to meet those contract deadlines before we start running into parameters, the sooner the better for us. And so that's why we can kind of get an idea of which direction the board is leaning on. Then we can move forward with the advertising, posting of these positions contingent upon the approval of the budget.
May I make a quick comment? Having a child in special education, but also being engaged with a number of folks in special education, often I hear the challenge is support, resource, people, all of those things. And in the salary study, we really tried to add financial incentives. And in my brain, this is extra support and people, which is why in my brain, this is something that makes a lot of sense to me. Anything we can do to provide additional supports for our special education teachers and staff and students ultimately, that will hopefully help decrease burnout, job dissatisfaction, help retain the good teachers and folks we have. That's just perspective to toss out there.
It will certainly create some dominoes in hiring too. And of course, we don't want to have any classroom vacancies. And like Ms. Price said earlier, that would be our priority, is to make sure we have folks in the classroom. But these positions would have dominoes in terms of hiring.
So you said there's only one of each in the district right now. How many, so that one coach, like how many people are they responsible for?
Hundreds. And so we have to prioritize the teachers who need them most. And to be honest, the request was for 3 additional academic and 3 additional behavior, so that we had 1 for the early elementary grades, 1 for later elementary, 1 for middle, and 1 for high. But we're only bringing 1 more forward right now in hopes that we could phase those in over time.
Thank you.
So 50 and 51 are 1 each.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Okay, some other items, unless y'all have.
No, keep going.
Okay, 50. I feel like I'm dominating the conversation, so y'all just
I have
interrupt
some
me.
stuff too, so don't worry.
Okay. 54 and 55. So middle school assistant principals, high school assistant principals. It's clear that administrators at the highest level and our current assistant principals have all kinds of pressure. And so I want to make sure that we get them the support that they need, but I also want to balance staff investments with student outcome improvements. And I recall that before myself and Mr. Pizzuti joined the board, there's a pilot ongoing where we had I believe it was assistant principal for a middle school, and then now we're looking at approving an assistant principal for an elementary school. I'm wondering if we could phase this and do not all at one time. So just a thought.
Could you maybe share with us for each high school specifically how many assistant principals each high school has and what you're looking to based on enrollment?
You have those numbers?
So we have 5 assistant principals at Lexington High School. River Bluff will have 5, and then Whitehall High School has 5. Pillion High School has 2, and Gilbert High School has 3.
And that's based off of their student population.
Correct, yes.
So I've had some conversations with assistant principals, and from what I've talked to those, this is why I'm kind of in favor of adding these positions. Is there's one assistant principal that literally, I think in the last like 3 or 4 months has not stepped foot inside a classroom because they have been so busy dealing with testing or something else. I think having that valuable extra person where we can get the assistant principals back in the classrooms to kind of, watch the teachers, get involved and not be stuck in testing all day, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's a benefit to everybody. So these things are, I know we're talking about things, we may take out or may put in, and I'll talk about some more stuff later, but the assistant principals, I think, is something that it's one of my high priorities in the budget, because I've seen it in person, that how, especially at the schools like Gilbert and so's, that the growth's there, but they're spread thin with administrators. I mean, you hear us say we don't want to add administrators, but this is one of the cases where we see it, that they're spread thin. So that's my 2 cents.
In the effort of having to cut the line somewhere, I guess my question then to the rest of the board would be, is anybody leaning towards a particular option 2, option 3, option 4, all or some?
I mean, sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but I mean, I think I'm in agreement that I think option 3 is the best 3, but I think there's some things that I think we all probably have our own priorities, so maybe it's something where we say, here's what our priorities, here's what we can look at. I mean, for instance, me with the salary study, I think with the special education stipend, I think it's a great idea, but before the next reading, I'd maybe like to see what the total numbers look like if we cut it down from 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. Just cut there where we still give them the incentive, but just maybe not as much. Some small details like that. So, I mean, I think, everyone on this board has an opinion to what they think the budget is. I know y'all have heard me say I don't want to, see any millage increase, and I think with these options, we're not. When it comes to using fund balance, I wanted to see it around, if we had to use it to balance, around 10,000, I mean 10 million. I'm glad to see that the numbers have changed a little bit and got a little closer to that. So I think there's small things here and there that we may tweak, and I think, like I said, there's some things that we have priorities, like y'all know me, athletics is a high priority for me. I think it goes along with teaching the kids right from wrong and discipline and just hard work. So, I mean, the middle schools, without a budget themselves, I mean, they can't give the kids what they need to fully be involved in those sports. So we have kids missing out. And I mean, high school, yeah, they could use more, but the booster clubs are a little bit more prevalent in high school. So I could see where, that might be something we don't do this time, but I think middle school's something definitely we should do. So, I mean, I think that's the things we need to look at as a board. What are the priorities we actually want to see? And yeah, we want to be very, very concerned about being good stewards of our money, but we want to make sure the student outcomes are there too.
I will just say one thing, and you guys referred to this a little bit earlier when we were talking about the assistant principal situation. One of the things that we hear repeatedly in regards to the duties of those, besides testing, we talked about the number of students with IEPs, the number of meetings that they're attending, but you guys also did ask earlier about days, and one of the line items is an increase for the number of elementary assistant principal days, because consistently, and that came out of the salary study recommendation as a way to support elementary schools. We know compared to other districts, our days for assistant principals in general is not in line with other districts. Our elementary APs are 215 days. That's significantly less than other districts, which means this group of people have their APs there a lot less than others to support them. So it's less help that they have in the summer to get schedules done, to go to meetings, to have other means of support. Our middle school 220, so most of their other districts have their help there around 240 days, 230 to 240 days. So just another piece of that too.
So I have a couple thoughts. I guess we've been talking about the different options, so I do like option 3, but it may require some tweaking. Now, I will tell you, I don't have all of the exact tweaks, but just hear me out. If we do everything in option 3, including the would like to do's, we're basically adding 26 FTEs to the budget. That's 26. So this is what I'm trying to think of it from different perspectives. If we were going for a millage increase to add those 26 FTEs, the people out there who would be voting in that millage increase, or folks that would support us would say, can you give me a better feel for what's going to get done when we add these 26 positions? They also would probably want to understand, okay, that's 26, that's a big number. What's not getting done now? And what I think is internally with us, even though fortunately we can go into fund balance, we don't have to do a millage increase, I think we need to kind of hold ourselves accountable and paint that picture. I mean, there's a good, there's a bad, there's an ugly, but paint that picture as far as, okay, we want to add 5 assistant principals in every high school. We want to add 3 more middle school principals. What is not getting done right now? 26. And when that person comes, what will start getting done? And then I think we'll almost have to, we don't have to do it now, but we'll have to come back with some feedback to say, hey, if we added this, this was the result for student outcomes. I mean, ultimately, we want to fund things that are student outcomes. I like the would like to do's because it seems to be more focused in the schools. In the past, we've been accused of fattening up the district office and neglecting the schools, but right now, this would like to do is helping the schools. So I guess the thing I don't know if I have the full picture in my mind now. I mean, I feel like I'm taking everybody's word and I support them, but I don't know if I have the full picture now of what's not happening in the school and this extra person or this extra interventionist will help us do, this extra assistant principal will help us do. You know, I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts because that's, I mean, I'm just thinking in my profession, if I have to go and I have to say, we're going to add 26 new positions, I've got to be able to say, this is not happening, this is not happening, this is not happening. But as we check these boxes off, this person will do this person will do that. The other thing I want to point out is we're adding a lot of assistant principals. We're promoting some assistant principals. This is going to create a lot of vacancies and so forth. My concern is that these new assistant principals will be in a position to succeed. We can't just throw them to the wolves and just turn them loose. So do we have a plan for adding these assistant principals and how we're going to bring them up to speed so they can help rather than hinder? I'm sure you all have already worked all this out because I know there's a lot of effort, but I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts on that, just saying I don't take adding 26 FTEs lightly. I just want to know what are we doing and how are they helping us, not just because I want to be able to confidently go out there and tell the community, we authorize this in the budget because it's going to do this. We authorize this, this is going to do this. Not just, hey, they told us they had to have it, and so we just did it. So just, you don't have to answer all those questions tonight, but I just wanted you to know kind of what's swirling in my head right now.
We can, or we can bring it back to you in more of a presentation format. So
Right. Well,
can do
Mr.
whatever
Rice,
is-
I was just thinking about a comment you made about 26 employees. That is a lot. I'm not saying it's not a lot, but we have 32 schools, so that's not even one person per school. And so when you put it in that perspective, it's 26 sounds a little different when it's less than 1 FTE per school that way. That's the way I kind of look at it.
Right.
So I don't know if that
I mean,
helps.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just, as I think through that, that was just, 26 seems like it's a lot across the board.
Yeah.
Because it's not 26 teachers.
Right. Well, and I think going back to the performance metrics to go, not necessarily with every line item, but maybe, I mean, y'all tell us, but maybe the biggest expenditures or the ones that are the newest different things so that we can throughout the year look back and say, this did drive an outcome and here's how it did it. Or if it's not, then we have to make some tough decisions as well.
I was curious too, as far as the high school assistant principals, I know we have a lot of them in the room. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but what was the number one thing? Was there a theme, among them all that when they kind of came together and asked for this?
We actually have a
you're ready.
spokesperson
Wow.
who is ready for that question.
This was not planned. Okay.
Dr. Price, do you have some people you would like to call up? Because
Yes, ma'am. We knew that we may get some questions about that particular item, and so that's why the principals are here, and they have elected a spokesperson to be ready in case there were specific questions. So we have Mr. Dixon ready to go, and he was just waiting for the cue. So, Mr. Dixon, rather than me answering this question, I'd like to defer to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Board, thank you all very much for this opportunity. The selection process was pretty easy. I was the last to touch my nose. So that's why I got in front of you. Great questions. We all truly appreciate this conversation because we're going to handle our business, and that's the Lexington one way. But to kind of give you some concrete information about high schools, Mr. Rice, at the end of March, we had done 12,503 discipline referrals. Now, if you've ever walked in administrator's shoes, you know that they can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or all day. So let's take an average of 30 minutes for one discipline referral. I'm going to tell you on average, the 500 phone referrals we've done since January are taking 20 minutes. So with that, on average, 30 minutes, that's 6,251 hours we're spending on discipline. When it comes to LEA meetings, which is IEP 504, manifest meetings, things of that nature, 30 to 60 minutes is on average. All right, so let's take 45 minutes. Of the 1,973 meetings we've conducted at the end of March, that's a total of 1,479.75 hours that we're spending doing operational duties. To go to Mr. Pizzutis, I can speak for Gilbert High School for testing. Again, we have 3 assistant principals. One assistant principal is dubbed as the testing guru, right? So poor Mr. Tillman gets stuck with this. I'm going to tell you, March, October, we don't see him. So now I'm down to 2 APs. So I pick up AP duties, which means who's running the school? Good question. Y'all might have that question anyway. So with that, some of our testing data. In the fall, we provided 9 assessments to over 1,200 students. This spring, we will conduct 17 assessments to over 1,700 students. So obviously, we're around 1,050, 1,100 students are taking multiple tests. But that's to keep into mind if you have accommodations or modifications. All that has to be put into play. Coordinating teachers, all that goes into that. My APs get to school at 7:30. We don't leave until 5:30, 6. We're putting in 60-hour work weeks every single week, and that's not including nightly duties or weekends. So for example, I have 4 children, 2 off the payroll, 2 still on the payroll. Since Sunday night, I've seen my 2 that are still on the payroll for less than 20 minutes because I had game duty last night. Now that is a sacrifice that we are all willing to take because we're servant leaders. We put on our Sunday best and ask for this job. But there is a realization to that burnout, and I forget which one of you brought it up, and thank you very much for saying that. Average lifespan of a high school principal nationwide is 3 to 4 years. And I'm going to tell you, as maybe one of the old dogs in the room who have done this for a while, I took over my first school in 2006. We've seen education go from, it used to be the 3 Bs, right? Books, butts, and buses. Make sure the kids get to school, make sure they're in the seat, put a book in front of them, and then you could drink your cup of coffee. Things like Common Core, Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, all those federal kind of initiatives drove accountability to an all-time high. And I'm going to tell you, being in this game as an educational leader for the last 20 years, accountability is at an all-time high in my career. So if you want to know the impact of it, Mr. Rice, for anybody that asks you, it's simply, I gave you all of the data for operations, but you know how many walkthroughs I've been able to get to this year? 8. My job as an instructional leader of the school. Last year, just by making some little tweaks and getting people on board, we jumped from average on up. And I expect us to jump to excellence, if not this year, the year after. You can't do that if you're in meetings and discipline and always in that hamster wheel of being retroactive. We've got to get on offense. And that offense is spreading the wealth so that we can get in classrooms, we can be seen. And so that's some data for you. The last thing that I'll kind of say and maybe leave you with, the question that I wrestled with is, again, I was slow to touch the nose. We moved down here 4 or 5 years ago from Virginia. The reason that we chose Lexington 1 is because of the reputation. But I want you to look at the data, because at the end of the day, we all get judged on graduation rate. Look where we are in comparison with the state and where we have gone. But look at the potential sitting in this room as leaders. I'm going to tell you, in all of my stops in my entire life, I'll go to bat with every single one of these leaders in this room. So the question really is twofold. The first one is, are we satisfied with being good, or do we want to make the jump to great? Because the decision that we have to make as building leaders is what we, or where we spend our time. What's the focus of our time? Right now, it's focused operational. Gilbert High School, we're 50% that live in poverty, which means trauma, which means my job is just not a principal. I'm a coach, I'm a dad, I'm a mentor, I'm a counselor, I'm a cheerleader, and we go through all of those pretty quickly. Just today, I've received double-digit emails from students that would like to have a meeting with me, right? Just to talk about different needs, parents in the hospital, whatever it might be. Those are things that are not measurable but are so important to drive the school. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm going to touch my nose now and sit down unless you all have any other questions for me. But I greatly appreciate the conversation, appreciate the support, just to have the dialogue. This means the world, just to have the dialogue. We trust you as our leaders. We appreciate the chance to come before you as a collective group and kind of provide to you what we feel like our needs are. Now, I'm well aware, as many others in this room, once you come before you and put these needs, and if you grant them, then you know what happens? Accountability goes up a little bit more. Better get things done. But right now, we're, as a good friend of mine would say, we're kicking like Kung Fu at Gilbert High, and we're not even in classrooms. So what can we do if we get in classrooms to support the teachers? Thank you very much.
I have one quick question for you.
I knew there'd be somebody. Golly.
And this is probably, this is just, this is just me. Y'all can ignore me, but I'm just curious. Is one enough?
Oh, now if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, we can talk.
The rest of the board is like, shut her up. I'm just curious, really. I mean.
Well, there is a COA 5, which we've all been creating, that has a different wish list. No, I'm just kidding. We don't want to be greedy, because I think we all want to be good stewards of the position that we're in. I agree. Having set out KPIs, if that's the route we want to go, then let's do it. Let's rock and roll with it. But let's get everything clear, and let's put the reality on the table to discuss. But I greatly appreciate you saying that. We would be happy with just table scraps, to be honest with you. But we are growing. We are seeing a lot of things. But just to be honest, taking care of the operational side of things is taking me away from being that instructional leader. And I think that's a reality. It doesn't matter, speaking from the high schools, it doesn't matter if you have 750 at Pillion, 1050, 1100, or 2600. It does not matter. So to compare numbers, you're looking in the wrong direction to make the right decision. It is no joke, the reality of today, the reality of where our kids are coming. A mentor of mine long ago said, it's always Maslow's before Bloom's. And that's where we are at Gilbert High. We're trying to provide that safe environment to take care of them, to be in public, to give them somebody that loves them, to feed them, but also here's the high expectations. And sometimes you got to be behind kicking or pushing. Sometimes you got to be in front high-fiving and shaking hands. But that tough love, that's what's taking time for the academic success.
May I ask you another question? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, y'all about out of tokens.
Mine's great, though. I think you'll love it.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard you talk about those discipline referral numbers, the LOA meeting numbers, the testing numbers. Are there other things, and this may put you on the spot, and y'all may shoot daggers at me the other way, but are there other things in addition to people that help solve that we should be asking about or looking into? Because sometimes I see numbers like that and I think, I don't see one person just completely solving that problem.
Correct.
So is there a root cause that maybe we could think outside the box to add some other resources for you all that help reduce some of that as well?
Great question. I don't mind being put on the spot. I will try to honor everybody in here with my response. So I say this in kind of a humble manner. The things that we're facing today are different than before. So vaping is a real thing. According to our handbook, that's wrong. And when you get caught, here's the discipline. So that goes deeper than just school. That goes to practices at home. As a fellow parent, it's not for me to judge, so I'm not going to go there. But addiction is a real thing, and vaping is real. What we've been trying to do is build out a better platform to help students cope with the realities of today. We talk about mental wellness a lot, but what does that mean? What are the skills that go into being mentally well? So I don't know. That's an amazing question, a great question. But I think some of the things are just residual. Cell phones. Now that's good, but that came from the state. The reality is we've done a little over 500. 20 minutes a pop, if not more, being cussed at, being praised, and anything in the middle. So I don't think it's my duty nor my place to go into a full conversation with you on that, but definitely love where your head is from a building level. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, my turn.
Oh, my heavens. I knew this was going to happen.
No, seriously, I do want to say, as someone that is from the Gilbert area, and having a daughter that's gone through 2 different principals there, I do appreciate the direction that Gilbert is going in. It seems to be, a lot better than it was a few years ago, and I appreciate it. I'm big on accountability, so I appreciate that. This may be a moot point for you because Gilbert may earn one in another, as they say, in another year or 2 anyway. But as I said earlier, this is something that, is kind of a priority of mine, and I do appreciate what you said about all the time is going for being operations. We think a lot about our principals, and, you put out of your mind that, well, they run the school, so that should be their main focus, but we forget that, our main concern should be student outcomes. And if we don't have the leaders in the schools actually leading where they need to be leading, then we're missing out. So I appreciate what you said. I appreciate the thoughts of the principals. And like I said, this is just one area that I never thought I would be this way because I've always been one, we need to cut admin, cut administrators. But when you actually sit down and talk with these people and understand where they're coming from, what they're missing out on, like you said with Mr. Tillman, I mean, you rarely see him in the spring. You see him at sporting events, and that's about it. And so he's there till 9, 10, 11 o'clock, closing out after he spent all day in classes. And that's just one assistant principal at Gilbert. So I mean, that's district wide. So I just want to say thank you and appreciate for what y'all do, and y'all have my full support on this idea.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the kind words.
Mr. Dixon, thank you for touching your nose.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. All right, board. Other comments, questions? Dr. Price?
Just a thought, we could, based on conversation that I'm hearing so far, and we probably could eliminate the first and the last option and maybe get us down to the middle options going forward.
So that's one of the clarifying questions I was going to ask, that it seems like there's some interest in doing at least some portion of option 3. And so whether that's all of option 3, which would include everything in the would like to do category, or some of the things, that what we're aiming for is somewhere there, that I think what I'm hearing is that we like the recommendations of the Salary Study Committee and moving that forward, but bringing back some information about what a different price value would be for the special education certified retention stipend. You may recall that year 1, we said they would get a $1,000 stipend. Year 2 would be a $2,000 stipend, and then year 3 and beyond, it's a $3,000 stipend. And I think there was a question of what would that look like if it was more 1,000 across the board or 1,500 across the board or something like that. So we can bring back some options with that in mind. But I think that was the only question I've heard about the salary studies recommendation. So if we can focus on option 3, if that's what I think most everyone is kind of aiming towards, and then bringing back some specific information about each of these items that are included in this additional piece of option 3. And we can focus there on moving forward. How much of that is to be included moving forward will be something that we'll have to work through. But I think what I'm hearing is that this is the area that we want to start with at this point and work forward with. Is that correct?
Right. So, Mr. Rice.
I do have one thing I saw in option 4 that I really want to make sure I understand. Option 4 has the CEP program in it. And I know we said no to it previously because it was much higher. And I think the most recent was it was $2.5 million was what it was. And I don't know if you all know this direct answer, but I'm thinking about that. That CEP program allows every child there to have lunch, basically have free lunch, and we supplement that difference. Does that make a big difference to student outcomes in some way? I mean, I know some if a student can't concentrate on eating, or if they don't have a meal, it's hard for them to focus on academics. But I'm just thinking, is there something that helps within the school if everybody has free lunch and people aren't singled out for having free lunch or reduced lunch? Or is there no correlation from an academic perspective?
It would be hard to quantify an answer for that question.
Okay.
Because every student who qualifies for free lunch gets free lunch.
Okay.
This would mean that every student, including those who don't qualify for free lunch, get free lunch. Ms. Miller's done a lot of work on this and working with our food service staff, so she may be able to provide some more specific comments about participation rates and those kinds of things, and I'll defer to her for the rest of that question.
Okay.
As Dr. Price said, any student that truly qualifies, if their families, either they're direct certified, if they are eligible for other benefits, it's an automatic, they are certified and approved, and then their families can apply and they will receive their free or reduced lunch. I think what's important to remember is that when you do a CEP, everybody receives the free lunch, but it's not free, and somebody has to pay for that. And so that is where the district has to pick up that payment amount. So I think we certainly want our children to have nourishment and have meals every day, and I think those that truly are in need can certainly receive that benefit. Are there any other specific questions you had?
No, I mean, that's fine. I think I want to make sure that we don't just, oh, we don't need that, just we throw that out. I mean, and we just understand, yeah, I understand somebody has to pay that price, but I've heard people before talk about potential bullying, you know, for, oh, you're free lunch, you're reduced lunch, I'm not. So I didn't know if that's something that takes that out and makes it a more welcome environment, just asking. I mean, it's a $2.5 million price tag, so it's a heavy price tag, but I was just curious.
Well, you can be comforted with knowing that with the new federal regulations, you are not allowed to identify children that are receiving free and reduced. As a matter of fact, we cannot even tell the bookkeeper that we know on this hand that these children are free and reduced. The family has to let that information be distributed to the school directly. So no longer are the days where you have a card or anything that identifies it. The cashier, every student has their ID badge. It is looked at, scanned. No one knows who's paying or taking it off the account or receiving it for free. So, and children will never be turned away that cannot afford a lunch. They will always receive a meal, whether they have money on their account or are free and reduced. So every child will receive a meal.
And I just want to point out too, Chris, that in case you weren't aware, even if a student like my own kids can pay for lunch, sometimes they don't have money on their card and they go and get lunch, they'll never be turned away either. No child will ever be turned away, whether they can afford it or not afford it. So, and at the end of the day, you know, if the child that could afford it got the lunch and they don't pay the bill, we're still going to pay the bill. Do you know what I mean? I think I appreciate, your concern over it because I think you're just so caring, and I really appreciate that. I think maybe it would be cool to have just some communication maybe to, I don't know, pushed out in some way, not to advertise the fact that we're going to feed your kid no matter what, but just to say that, you know, if maybe you don't qualify for it, but, you know, you need a little help, we're never going to turn your child away. We're always going to feed your child. So, because that means a lot to me too. So, and then also, Kathy and I at conference stopped and talked to this lovely lady about food service, and I had a conversation with Dr. Price about that and possibly, you know, looking at doing something in the future with, yeah. So, because my biggest concern, not only with, you know, feeding our kids, is what are we feeding them, you know? I mean, we can't just give them Pop-Tarts and white bread, right? We gotta give them really good, healthy stuff. And so I would really like to see that the menu beefed up. And anyway, we can talk more about that later. But.
Can we just bring the fiestadas back? Might be showing my age there, but that was always a great day at school.
So Dr. Price, kind of circling back to where you were, I think what you've interpreted from our discussion, striking option 1 to start at the 52,000 is accurate. Option 4, as far as the optional stuff goes, I know we addressed the CEP. The only question I had about that was the student resource officer supervisor position through the Lexington Police Department. Is that just a request that they had?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happens if we don't support that?
Well, they have kind of a staffing formula that they use as well, that once they reach a certain number of school resource officers, they would like to have a school resource officer supervisor. Okay. And so they're asking if we would pick up the cost for that SRO supervisor.
And if we don't?
They continue to use the current oversight personnel that they have now.
Okay. And is that appropriate? So you're saying if we have 50, there's this many supervisors, but if we have 70, they need an additional supervisor. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, and this is for the town, not the county.
Okay, I see. And then with the drug testing program, the contract price increase, if we don't cover that, does that mean we break our contract with the drug testing program and we no longer drug test our students?
We wouldn't be breaking our contract, but you may recall that the current vendor that we're using is going out of business. So if we're going to continue, the vendor that's available to perform those services for us, it costs more to use them than the one that we were currently under contract with. So if we're going to continue that program, then we've got to budget for the increase in cost.
And so if we choose to not do this other request, we would need to change our policy, because currently we state that we drug randomly test our high school drivers and athletes, correct?
That is correct.
Board, do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Dr. Price, how many other districts are drug testing still?
I believe Mr. Cooper did some research on that, and I believe we found 2.
Yes, sir. We did send a survey out, and 2 districts responded that they were.
Out of how many districts?
About 78.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did y'all talk to principals about that at all?
The question, Mr. Cooper, was were principals talked to about that program?
No, ma'am, not at this time. We had wanted to get guidance from the board, but it has been discussed amongst our nursing staff leadership, our district athletic director, and student services staff.
And then last question before we strike these other requests. So if we don't do the merchant fees on student fees online payments, then every time a parent pays for their kid's lunch, they're going to pay that extra $260 every time all that kind of stuff.
There are specific items that if you use the convenience of paying online, there's a fee that comes attached to it. And Ms. Miller, there are some things that that cost is taken on by the user.
That's
And
correct.
so there are some that it's not passed on the user, but these it is. And if the district is going to assume those, and was it anything beyond food service, or were there others?
Yes, so online RICOR payments, when a parent is paying one of the board-approved fees, the district is covering that merchant fee. But if a parent is paying online for prom or the yearbook, they actually absorb that merchant fee on those transactions.
Okay. Before we move on, anyone else have comments? Okay, so Dr. Price, you kind of have some direction
Yes, ma'am.
to move forward with option 3, yet some different board members have requested some numbers about stuff.
Yes, ma'am. We
Okay.
got it. Thank you.
All right, moving along. We're going to move on to item 2.0, and that is the Lord have mercy, I'm like, 8.2, the program overview for evaluation planning. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gaskins.
Thank you. So staying with the theme of paying attention to student outcomes and being good stewards, last year we drafted a program evaluation plan, and this year began implementing that plan and are learning a lot as we do so. So in the plan, it includes both how we will evaluate existing programs in the district, but also how new programs will be vetted and approved before we begin them. To begin implementing this year, last year the board identified 5 programs that would be evaluated. 2 you've already heard the evaluation reports for, 1 you'll hear tonight, and then 2 more this spring. And I do want to emphasize that the goal of the evaluation plan was not just to look at return on investment. Of course, that's really important, and decide which programs to keep or cut, but more importantly, to really see how we can improve each program through that evaluation to make sure we are getting the best return on the investment. So following each formal evaluation, because not all of our programs had identified metrics, so following each of these formal evaluations, we'll be adding those. So the 2 that you've already heard from this year, next year you'll hear an update on those metrics that were established, and they'll be monitored annually and reported to the board. So in May, we're going to ask the board to really help us decide which programs will be evaluated next year. Our assessment and accountability team took on these program evaluations in addition to the work they were already doing. So they have learned this year that 5 was too many. They have the capacity to do about 3 or 4 a year. So we want to think about those ones we want to prioritize. I will remind you, as you've heard the other 2 program evaluation reports, I think it would be a good idea to kind of emphasize those high school programs, since 3 of them will have been evaluated this year, so we can look at the others next year and compare across as we think about the full system and those things that we want to continue and really do well across those programs. So that's just my recommendation, but I think at your desk, Ms. Halliday, am I right? At your desk, you have a list of the programs that have not been evaluated yet, and an opportunity to let us know which 3 you'd really like for us to prioritize next year. And then when you come back in May for the May meeting, we'll have more discussion about what those programs will be. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Gaskins, can you repeat yourself on the ones you said you thought we should look at? I'm sorry, I didn't catch those.
So this year we'll have done the IB program, the College Center, and one of our advanced centers of study. So my recommendation would be that we look at the other advanced centers of study, so we have kind of a big picture view of all of those different high school programs. I think it will help us understand how we can recruit for all of the programs and really learn about how we can implement them all well, as well as, any considerations we'd have to make about those that we're not getting a return on investment for.
And on this sheet, you're asking us to rank them. Is that ranked on what we want to see evaluated or what we think is important?
What you'd like to see evaluated.
Okay.
Great question.
Board, do you have any other questions for Ms. Gaskins? All All right, well, we are just going to move on to 8.3, which is the program evaluation report for the Center for Law and Global Policy Development, and Dr. Shane Phillips is going to lead us through this.
Oh, yep, okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, Drs. Postal, Waite, and Price. It's my pleasure tonight to present the evaluation report in brief for the Center for Law and Global Policy Development at River Bluff High School. So just a little bit of background. This center was established with the high school in 2013. It focuses on exactly what the title says, law and public policy. It's divided into 2 years. Level 1 is 11th grade, level 2 is 12th grade. Level 1 students take honors, law and justice, international relations, and AP US history. And level 2 students take honors, global policy, law and policy practicum, legal and policy debate, and AP US government. They focus on real world applications in these fields. And these things include internships, field trips, for example, to the National Advocacy Center and to Washington, D.C., Model UN competitions, moot courts, mock trials, and the We the People competition that you heard more about earlier this evening. And I think it's important to note that about 2/3 of those students that participated in the We the People competition are center students at River Bluff High School. They also host many events using the students at the center, including congressional debates and school board forums. So the current enrollment has gone up and down. So we remain right around 45 to 50 students over the past 3 years in 11th and 12th grade, and they have 3 staff members. The current budget is $12,500 a year, and that's non-personnel. Obviously, that's their just sort of operating budget there. And again, student enrollment has fluctuated over time, but has become relatively stable. And of the students that participate and complete the center's curriculum, 100% have graduated on time. I should mention that I have Mr. Jacob Smith and Ms. Lindsay Dooley here who represent River Bluff High School and the center, so if I say anything dumb, they can correct me. So I want to point out some notable accomplishments of the center. And Ms. Dooley, you tell me, are we now 8 or is this 7? We're now 8 and then 5 times. Excellent. Okay, so we are now 8-time We the People state champions and 5-time participants in the We the People competition at the national level. They've won numerous awards at Model UN conferences, hosted congressional debates and school board forums. We have teacher awards, including I'm gonna mess up this name, the Gilder Lehrman Teacher of the Year and the South Carolina Bar Law-Related Education Teacher of the Year. And the AP scores consistently surpass district, state, and global averages. So for this evaluation, similar to the last one we did, we looked at both their internal aims that they've established. Again, this is one of those programs that we didn't have any specific metrics, but they had general aims for the program, which were to develop effective learners, ethical individuals, and contributors to a better world, and equip students with post-secondary skills that include critical thinking, leadership, public speaking, those kinds of things, all of which align very nicely and tightly to our profile of a graduate. So we looked at their implementation of the program and their effectiveness of their outcomes in the program relative to these aims. We also looked at research best practices around the instruction of law and global policy at the high school level. And those practices include real-world case studies, interactive learning, critical thinking and debate, multidisciplinary approaches, the use of technology, having ethical discussions, scaffolding complex topics, and developing global awareness. So we measure them against those things as well, in addition to simply looking at student performance relative to other students in the district. So in short, the center effectively achieves its stated aims. I had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with the center students, and this is obviously my observation and opinion, but it was some of the best student to teacher and student to student interaction I've seen in a classroom. A lot of critical thinking, a lot of very educated and considerate and ethical debate. They were getting ready for the We the People competition when they were doing it, so they were fielding really tough questions and backing them up with evidence. And so it was really impressive to watch, and if you haven't had the opportunity to go look at it, I would strongly recommend that you do that. There's a strong emphasis on ethical awareness, civic responsibility, and post-secondary skills. And they demonstrate a strong commitment to all those research-based practices that we saw. In particular, they excel in experiential learning with students all participating, or many of them participating in externships and internships in the field of law or global policy. They do a great job of developing the critical thinking and the global awareness. So student performance. The college and career readiness rate averages about 94% over the past 3 years. Students outperform the district, state, and world averages on AP Government and AP U.S. History exams then those are classes that each of those students must take in that program. Here are those examples. The blue line that you see there are the center students. The red line is the district, the yellow line is the state, and the green line are the global averages. So you can see how the center students are doing compared to all those other kids around the state and nation and world and district. So some barriers to implementation. The first, and it always comes down to this, it seems like. So with a budget of $12,500, that gives them basically a per student cost of about $277, I think it was. Some of the field trips and experiences that these students participate in are rather expensive. And so there's a little bit of a financial burden on students because a lot of that has to come out of the family's pocket. Now, well, I'll get to that here in a second, but the second difficulty is marketing. And so they're having difficulty reaching students at other district high schools. So if you look at that chart there, that table there, you'll notice that across all the years, the vast majority of students in this center come from River Bluff High School. There are a smattering of kids from the other high schools. At some of our other schools that have higher poverty, the funding piece might be a limitation or a deterrent from students attending the center because they're unable to afford to participate in those activities. So as recommendations, we would say that the center should look at alternative ways to fund some of those trips, including fundraising campaigns that they might do in-house. Aside from that, it is an extremely strong program with very high student achievement, adherence to research-based best practices, and the accomplishment of their established aims. Again, they should evaluate and potentially supplement that budget. And we recommend a targeted marketing and recruitment campaign to reach more students at the rest of the high schools. I don't know that the aim should be to increase enrollment necessarily, although I think that probably would be good, but to increase the enrollment of the other high schools and the participation from across the district in that opportunity. And again, as exists in all of these programs that were developed in the past, we need to establish specific measurable objectives to monitor program effectiveness along the way. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Dr. Phillips,
That was fast.
I feel like I'm noticing a trend through the evaluations that one of the key findings or conclusions is marketing is an opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm going to guess and imagine you may continue to see that trend in future program evaluations. I'm wondering, and I'm not real clear what we currently have in place as far as educating our 8th and 9th grade students, and then consistently through high schools, through guidance counselors, et cetera, on these different programs. It wasn't too long ago that I had a 9th grader coming up, and I don't remember like a spreadsheet or just some simple reference to all of these programs that are potentially available in the upcoming years. Might be an idea, which you probably already tossed around, I don't know, but just that I imagine is going to be a trend we'll continue to see as marketing is the opportunity. And the challenge I think today is there's so much information. How do you to boil it down and get it to the right audience at the right time, et cetera, but just calling that out.
Yes, ma'am. I tossed it around with Mary this morning, as a matter of fact.
I would say being a parent of a kid in this program, it's just been such a blessing to us. And they're also passionate about the program. I think it would be really cool for them to maybe even go on the road and be able to talk to, you know, some of the rising 9th and 10th graders maybe, and just give them a, you know, synopsis of the program. That might be fun for them to do because they all just are so excited about it. And then for me, I mean, it just, again, it's such an amazing program, and I just wish that we could clone Ms. Dooley and Mr. Burgess and, you know, put them in every high school so that, you know, every school could have that program, because I know it's tough to get, you know, to River Bluff for some of our students. But I just wish there was some kind of a way where we could, you know, when there's anything, whether it's elementary, middle, or high, a program that is really, really great, I always want to, can we figure out a way to put, you know, share the good news and do that in the other schools. So I would just, I don't know, like to see some more talk about that.
I would I like to piggyback off of what Ms. McCown's saying, because I agree. I kind of was sitting as you were telling this, and this program, and I'm glad Ms. Dooley's here so you can tell her to her face that every event I've ever gone to with this group, the kids are always number one, you know, first class, and their commitment to, I'm gonna say, civic duty is so impressive. Not many kids their age like to get involved in the political nature. I guess one reason why I like this program is because there wasn't many around when I was their age, and I was kind of involved. I wish this program was involved when I was in high school, because I definitely probably would have been in this. And so I think that's something we need to push, is the civic duty that, you know, we try to tell people, especially just showing up here to, you know, for public participation. You know, it's your duty as a citizen to make sure that, you know, you talk to the people that you put in office. And I think those kids are getting a good head start on that. And I would love to see this program expanded to other schools. I know there's kids from Gilbert and Pillion in the program, but it is hard to, you know, drive from Gilbert to River Bluff, or from Pillion to River Bluff. But I mean, I think this program is important enough that that's something we probably do need to look at in the future, is expanding it.
Mr. Phillips, you showed some charts that were pretty telling about how they're outperforming, folks in the center are outperforming district students, the state, global. I guess one question I have, since I think the program is a phenomenal program. I mean, it just really is and makes a big difference. But I just wonder, is there a particular profile of student that typically goes to that program? I mean, are these your high flyer, high achievers, top 10%, and then by 11th grade, they drift over into the program? Or do we pretty much come out of the John Q population, and then this program really molds them and shapes them into being these stellar academic performers?
So I'll give you my impression from my evaluation, and then I'll let Ms. Dooley answer as well. It is open to anyone. And I will say this, that the level of rigor that exists in the coursework that I have looked at and that I observed, requires a great deal of dedication and devotion from those students. So I won't say that there's a specific profile that I observed, like that they're all top 10%. I didn't look at that, to be honest with you. However, the ones that I did observe and that I did look at as far as their scores and participating were above average students in their performance. But more than that, I think, is that they have to be dedicated to the program and to sort of the content that's going to be presented in that program. They have to have a genuine interest and a passion for that. Ms. Dooley, am I missing something?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I would actually argue, and I have no statistics to back up what I'm saying, but I would actually argue that we don't really get a lot of the top 10% kids because most of them are trying to take as many AP classes as they possibly can to stay in the 10%. And so for some of them, they can't fit the law center in their schedule or they don't want to, that type of thing. We do have amazing students and they are really high level students. It is open to everybody. So we have students who come to us who have taken AP and honors classes. We have students who come to us who have never taken a single AP and honors class, but they're really interested in what we're doing. So we get a really wide variety of students in terms of their kind of background and what they have done before they come into the center. I think the thing that probably speaks to those scores is their level of interest and their passion for the topics. They join the law center because they are interested in history and politics and policy and those types of things. So the two AP classes that we offer, the AP US History their junior year and the AP Government their senior year, they're interested in those topics. And so they are willing to kind of dive deeper into them. I love my students, but if they take AP Stats and AP Calculus, those scores may not look like that because that's not necessarily their area of interest. They're going to do their very best, but their scores on those tests wouldn't necessarily look the same, which I think accounts for some of those differences from our center kids to the other students who are taking APUSH and AP Gov.
I'll just end with this really fast. The level of, like you said, the level of rigor, the amount of information that these kids come out of the center knowing is insane. It is so impressive. I just wish that there was a way to have every student, every high school student, be able to tap into this knowledge. I mean, yes, math and science and English, those are super important, but history is so important too. It is, you know, if we don't learn from the past, we'll repeat its mistakes. So it's just so important. I'm very passionate about it. So is my kids. So I wish there was, like, again, a way that we could spread this goodness across the district and allow, you know, more students to get in. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dooley, for chiming in. All right, we're going to move on to the first reading of policy IJOA and OAR. Ms. Gaskins, I think you have 3 policies for us.
I do. So I have the actual policy for field studies and international travel, as well as the accompanying administrative rule and a recommendation that we delete the exhibit. So basically, the updates just really streamline this approval process, create more efficiency, leave some more control at the school level for the principal to approve all in-state and out-of-state travel that is less than a day, lasting less than one school day. Currently, all out-of-state travel comes to me first and then you as a board. And so that could happen at the school level for just the one-day trips. And then all overnight field studies have the approval of the principal and the superintendent's designee prior to student travel. And then you as a board would receive those lasting more than 3 consecutive school days or any international travel to approve. Again, streamlining that process some and helping us to more efficiently plan for that travel. and adding a little more detail too in terms of the expectations. So you'll see some of the language from the model around those expectations. One other thing regarding the exhibit, we are moving to a digital approval process for our field trip forms, again, to create more efficiency with that approval process, eliminating the need for that exhibit. Happy to answer any questions.
Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Gaskins for this first reading? All right. Well, now, Mr. Cooper, I'm going to turn it over to you for policy ECAA.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you. And tonight we do bring forward for you for first reading policy ECAA, threat assessment. This is a new model policy issued by the State School Boards Association, and we're bringing it forward as written. This policy does not change any of our practices and procedures. We've followed the behavior threat assessment and management guidelines issued by the state since their inception, and will continue to do so. So we are bringing this forward to you tonight for first reading as written as the model policy.
Thank you, Board. Questions for Mr. Cooper? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. All right, we are going to move on to our superintendent's report. So, Dr. Postlewaite.
Thank you. I would first like to congratulate Dr. Price, the staff, the board, and the principals on the budget discussion. That was one of the most informed and clear discussions I've heard a group have regarding their objectives and their priorities and how those two align. So I thank all of you for that. I think that was really well designed, and clearly you all did a lot of homework to get ready for tonight. And the principals being here to answer your questions, I think was really helpful. The second thing I'd like to do is to fess up that at the last meeting, I invited the principals to leave. Many of them sitting here have to be on the job at 6:30 in the morning, and you've already heard about what their work weeks are like, that you cannot do these jobs in less than 60 hours a week, and they are always on call. So I would like to suggest that we offer those who would like to leave an opportunity to do that now. So.
No judgment.
All right, let's see. We're taking notes.
One does not like to think that one is superfluous, but most of my topics have already been covered tonight, so I'm going to move through them quickly. We already talked about the budget assumptions. There were a couple of extra just requests that didn't actually become assumptions, but we did as we were asked to do with respect to that. In your packets, there was an example of the work plan that we've been using since about December of '22. In the old work plan, we had the board's work month by month in the left-hand column, and then to the right of that, the plan showed what the staff would be doing, the concomitant work that the staff would do, so that the board had an idea of what we do in addition to responding to concerns that are sent our way. So the new example for next year actually takes the board action and work. This is just an example. Dr. Price and the leadership team are still developing this document, and I think it should be ready for sharing with the board next month. But the first column would have the board action and work. The second column would have what we're doing from the strategic plan. What is the focus that we're looking at from the strategic plan? And then the third column will have those data landscape deliverables that the board has asked for. So I think that a lot of your questions about how we show return on investment for some of the budget recommendations will show up in the data landscape deliverables. If you see as you go along that they're not there, it's a very simple matter to talk about what evidence we would accept as progress toward reaching the goals and what ROI we're looking for. So the other items I wanted to talk about are listed here, and then a couple of that have cropped up since we posted this PowerPoint to the board. You already know about number one. I just wanted to remind everyone that the way we're handling the possibility of the positions is to go ahead and advertise those positions with big red print across the top that says pending board approval and availability of funding. So it allows us to go ahead and move forward. By the end of this week, our internal employees aren't permitted to transfer from one school to another, so it gives them a chance to see what may be coming up. And then, of course, by May 10th, all of our employees have to sign their contracts, and there's an item here where we're asking you tonight to really commit to the teacher pay scale you think you'll have, so that we'll be one of the few districts in the state that's able to give our teachers a good idea of what that will look like. And then a couple of other things before I get to number two. At the last meeting, when we were adopting textbooks, board members asked if every child had a textbook, and we said, oh, yes, but that was, in fact, not the case. And what I will tell you, I started working in public schools, in schools in 1968, and I will agree with what Mr. Dixon said. I have been through so many cycles that I am at this point being recycled in trends. Seriously, but the needs of children has grown in exponential and inexplicable ways. We don't know what is causing this crisis that is part of the adolescence of so many young people. But we are trying our best to respond to it while remembering our main mission was to serve children academically. So one of the things that we learned as a result of the discussion was that we needed to order a book for every child as promised. But one of the phases that we went through as computers came of age was this belief that we weren't going to need all these textbooks. So we built schools without lockers. We built classrooms smaller without a lot of bookshelves. So we have a real storage challenge, and that's twofold. It's a storage challenge for the textbooks coming in for every child because they don't have lockers, and they cannot carry in backpacks all that weight. So we're going to be working on plans for that. But we also have a challenge because all these textbooks that are outdated and can no longer be used as the primary textbook have to be discarded. And there are certain procedures one has to follow. Our warehousing capability is nil, and the other warehouses that we're aware of are full. So we may end up issuing an RFP for book disposal, just explaining the twofold problem that we're running into as we realize that many people really do need to highlight, underline, and carry a textbook home to whoever is there to help with the lesson. Second thing I wanted to just mention quickly is we had an agreement with the county, with Lexington County Council about the concurrency review. So when they're considering new developments, we worked with them to develop a worksheet of questions and answers. We share those with you as they go to the council's planning committee. The planning committee members are sending back some questions. Well, if your school is full, have you thought about rezoning? Have you thought about building a new school? So I'm going to answer those questions on behalf of the board, but at some point, it might be a good idea for some board members or the board to sit down with the members of the County Planning Council so that you can explain to them where you are in that process and how we pay down debt on our debt service before we go out for another capital spending program. And in the meantime, Lexington High School is overcrowded very seriously, and there are some some ideas in the works, but they don't have any way to know that. So what they receive from us is just this, no, that won't work to send those children to the high school because it's overcrowded. So the next obvious question is, I'm worried about this, what are you doing? So just wanted to make you all aware. We'll keep you copied on everything and involved in everything, but I do think a meeting might be a good idea. And then finally, for the last couple of meetings, we've had a member of the public come and talk with us about his concerns about our transparency reports. Ms. Miller reached out to our reporting officials at the State Department of Education, and we wanted to reassure you that we're in compliance. Ms. Miller, would you want to say a word about that?
Yes, ma'am. I did reach out, and on April 7th, the South Carolina Department of Education District's Technical Services Consultant did verify that what we are reporting on our website is sufficient. I actually had a screenshot of the report in the first row showing an actual expenditure, and the response was what we had was sufficient, so we are in compliance.
Right. So the only other thing I wanted to mention was starting in May, Dr. Price will be taking a more prominent role in the meetings. This has been a wonderful year of superintendent-elect superintendent. I think it was a brilliant strategy rather than hiring a deputy superintendent to do the superintendent-elect. I think it's given everyone an opportunity to know Dr. Price, for him to know the staff, and for the programmatic issues and the practical issues to move forward without any major disruption as superintendents are transitioned. So I'll have more to say about that at the next meeting, but I did want to let you know I may sit up here at the beginning of the next meeting, but by the end of it, Dr. Price will be sitting at this table and will do so from then on. So that was the end of my report, and thank you very much, unless board members have questions for me. Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Miller, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe we're going to pull up the presentation here shortly. But thank you for the opportunity once again to talk about our monthly updates. We have the March 31st information this evening. It is just a summary of what you receive in your packets each month, bringing our total revenue as of March 31st to $285 million. Almost $286 million. You can see there that there is approximately 41.9% is in our local revenue. The rest is state revenue. As we discussed last month, that amount was 44.8, and it's decreasing for the local revenue. That's because we had our big influx of revenue that we collected, and that amount will continue to go down the rest of the year. Going on to this, just a little summary, wanted to let you know that looking at the revenue versus the revenue actual versus the budget, and letting you know that there was about $62,000 in rental income and $42,000 in other income. That other income, a large portion of that, just something that we receive every March. We do get a credit from Midlands Electric Company for our utilities, so that $23,000 was reported. That's what the majority of that is in other income. Moving down to expenditures, our expenditures are approximately $254 million. Again, pushing that 90% there is our salaries. Really no change in what we've been projecting for the remainder of the year. Still thinking we are going to have that amount coming in under budget on salaries, and no changes in what I'm projecting overall for the year. This just gives you a summary of that. And then, as I mentioned, the projection for the year is that we're going to really keep that fund balance pretty consistent to what it was last year. We saw that big spike, and now we're starting to see it trend going down, and I think we're going to land probably pretty close to a break even at year end. And then your last slide is just the procurement report, just showing you the transactions and then the very, very small amount of unauthorized transactions that we have for the month. Are there any questions?
Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Miller tonight? Okay, Thank you so much, Ms. Miller. Our next item on the agenda is citizens' participation. Ms. Halliday, or Ms. Roof? We had none tonight. Okay, we will move on to 11.1. So last month, we introduced a rough draft of the Board of Trustees' goals focused on the areas of data-driven accountability, strategic policy alignment, safe and supportive learning environments, communication and community engagement, fiscal stewardship, and long-term planning. And board members were asked to review those, and some people provided suggested revisions prior to this meeting. So the table in your board packet has those suggestions in it. So I'd like to open it up for discussion and then take a motion from the board. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2020, well, should I just open up for a discussion first, or should I do a motion? But we can't do a motion because we don't have goals to.
I think this is one of those times it makes sense to discuss first.
Discuss first, yeah. So I'm just going to open it up for discussion right now. So I'll just tell you, the column on the left is the one that we looked at last month. And then there's two other columns with feedback from other board members.
So just to clarify, so like the middle column might have been one person's suggestion and the far column to the right is somebody else's suggestion?
Correct, yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I wanted to mention that in the right-hand column with some of the timelines, Dr. Price may have suggested that those timelines so that they will align with the earlier timelines that had been given to the board.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. After the data landscape activity, when we map those out throughout the year, the items on the far right that change dates or the frequency of reporting is to align what you all approve with the data landscape.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's just take all five quick, just go through those. So data-driven accountability, what was presented last month was with a December 2025 timeline. So what you're saying is that far right column is, Dr. Price, you're saying that's a better time. Does anyone have any? Go ahead.
I guess, do we need to read it at all for record, or?
I guess when we need to make a motion, we'll have to read it at that point.
Yeah, the only reason I was wondering is because this was in administrative content and not in public content. So the public has no idea what we're discussing right now.
I don't know that we need to read it. We're discussing it, and once we bring it forward for a vote, I think we need to make sure it's public, of course. So I think we're trying to just provide some direction and guidance on where to go.
So it looks like there was a recommendation to change it from a quarterly reporting process last month to a semi-annual reporting process to monitor the key performance indicators related to student achievement, program effectiveness, system efficiency. So are y'all okay with that December 25 semi-annual recommendation? Okay.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
That kind of melds those two together. Okay, so that far right column, we can kind of highlight that. The strategic policy alignment, originally that was presented as June 2026. There was a recommendation to do June 2027.
Can I jump in on
yes,
that one? Because that one
was
I
a
think,
recommendation
my
of
red
yours.
line.
It was, yeah.
The June 2027 aligned better with what I believe were, let me just add one thing before I come back to this. I added in alignment with district's strategic plan and findings from curriculum audit, facility study, demographic audit, communications audit, and any other audit findings the board has presented. So June 2027 aligns with the completion of those findings.
But that doesn't mean that we can't start working on it sooner with the ones
Just
that we already have.
by.
Just by then. That's a great suggestion there to add that date.
I think the only comment I had about the strategic policy alignment was we referred to demographic audit, but it was actually more of a demographic study. It's
Okay.
just one word, but other than that, I was okay with that.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think if it was a study, we need to call it a study. If it was an audit, we need to call it an audit, just to be.
So the safe and supportive learning environments, we last month said by June 2025. There was a recommendation just to kind of strike that one. And then there's also keeping it, but say by September of 2025, the board will receive an annual progress report on indices such as student and staff safety, mental health, and access to support services.
I guess was the thought behind that, the school year ends in June, and that gives you time to compile the data
Yes,
by
sir.
September.
And you may recall that some of those items were discussed during the data landscape activity, and several board members requested an interest in looking at that data periodically. And so the goal would be to give an annual report on discipline, retention, school safety, those kind of items that impact those ratings. And so that's something that Mr. Cooper and his team will be prepared to do annually at the September timeframe based on the data landscape.
Okay.
Okay. The next one was the community engagement and communication. The only difference there,
I can take that one too.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I highlighted at least 4, so it says conduct at least 4 stakeholder engagement sessions per year. But we have 5 high school attendance zones. And I think sometimes we forget that it's hard to get to certain areas. So I would like to see us prioritize making sure we do those sessions in each of the 5, opposed to not always covering all of our large district.
So, Ms. Flashnick, do you think also if we went with at least 5, do we need some language that says they will be in each area of our high school areas? Because I mean, I could do 5 here at the district office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think that's a good suggestion. I would agree to that.
So, to help Mrs. Halliday out, by August 2025, the board will establish a governance engagement plan to conduct at least 5 stakeholder engagement sessions across
One in each
each attendance zone per year or something to that
I would
Maybe
say
say
at least
one.
at least one stakeholder meeting in each of the 5
Right.
high school attendance zones.
High school attendance zones.
Yeah.
And then we can get into the nitty gritty of what that would look like. Would it look similar in each of them, or would we have what the topics would be? We can get into that later, but I do think that's a good goal. Ms. Halliday, you good with that?
Can, while she's walking up, can I make a suggestion that, and I don't know how maybe we have to do this, that we kind of agree to everything, have district staff put it in one thing, and then at the next meeting, we actually approve from what our discussion is, so we can read it all at one time? Or do we have to have it, like, approved tonight? Just so, like, Ms. Halliday's not rushing to try to get all this done at one time.
We don't have a motion on the table right now, so we just wouldn't make a motion.
Okay,
tonight.
so.
That's a great suggestion, Mr. Pasuti. Is that, okay. Sorry, I had to like look over at her. Okay, so we've done data-driven accountability, strategic policy alignment. Oh, do you want to read the community engagement?
Sure, I've got, by August 2025, the board will establish a governance engagement plan to conduct at least 5 stakeholder engagement sessions in each of the 5 high school feeder patterns.
We're going to say one per high school
One
feeder pattern.
engagement session.
Right, so it's
per
not
high school
confusing
feeder
that we're trying to
pattern.
do 5 in each of the 5.
One stakeholder engagement session in each of the 5 feeder patterns,
Yes, ma'am.
high school feeder patterns. Okay, got it.
Thank you. And then the last one is fiscal stewardship and long-term planning. So we said March 2026, annual progress reviews. There was a suggestion to do quarterly progress reviews. Thoughts or comments on that?
I have a question about, does this duplicate anything from data-driven accountability? I want to be cognizant not to just add a bunch of reporting for sake of reporting.
So you're saying, could this be included in the semi-annual reporting process?
I do think with the additions made to the strategic policy alignment, it does kind of duplicate. So it's kind of preference. Do we want them split apart or do we want it rolled together?
I think the only thing that stands out different is the equal access to students in all areas of the district, but I think you could maybe move that wording up somewhere else.
Okay, so Ms. Flashnick and Ms. Shealy are kind of saying, let's take that last red line there that says, ensure resources are aligned to support equal access to students in all areas of the district. Would you want to move that to? Oh, safe and supportive learning environment. Well, that's an annual.
The only thing is if we do it in safe and supportive learning environments, you're asking for an annual progress report. Fiscal stewardship, you're talking about quarterly, so we probably need to resolve how many times a year are you
I
doing
am
that.
of the opinion that fiscal stewardship and planning should be its own,
Okay.
its own goal.
Okay.
I don't know if the reporting has to be different, but I do think that needs to be a standalone goal, in my opinion.
So looking at those two options, then with the notes beside it of like what identified programs, personnel projects, et cetera, are we looking to identify for performance-based reporting?
Madam Chair, can I ask you a question about your original? So it says the board will oversee the development and adoption of a comprehensive 5-year blah, 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 blah plan. We've already started that process.
Correct, right.
So could we just say the board will receive annual progress reviews to ensure resources, blah, blah,
Are
blah?
aligned to support high-quality learning environments, and then add in the long-term growth and equal access to students. Okay.
So quality environments, comma, long-term growth, comma, and equal access to students in all areas of the district.
Ms. Freeman will not allow the last comma, but
She
I
won't
think you're
allow
on the
the
right
comma.
track.
I work in a STEM career, not an ELA career, once again.
So by March 2026, the board will receive annual progress reviews to ensure resources are aligned to support high-quality learning environments, long-term growth, and equal access to students in all areas of the district.
So that still says annual, but what about Mr. Pizzuti's comment about?
Well, I think some of those things, as far as the quarterly or whatnot that was recommended in the second, will be addressed in the semi-annual data-driven accountability and that other one. Is that right?
Willie?
Dr. Price, he's like, he's got his.
I have a lot of questions about this category.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I'm trying to look for specifics so that our team will know exactly what to prepare and to present.
Okay.
So I see one piece that talks about a 5-year financial plan. Well,
We're taking that out.
We're leaving that one out?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because we have finances
you get monthly reports on our finances. We go through an annual budget process and so on. And the primary goal there is to be accurate with our budgeting. Got it. So the next piece talked about facilities, correct?
Yes.
Are we keeping that piece, or?
I was thinking the idea was that we're doing this facility study and we're trying to get information together to develop a long-term plan.
That's correct. And that will be part of not only the facility studies results, but it will also be part of our 8% budgeting process that we'll do, where we will have not only a year-to-year plan, but a 5-year plan looking out. And we will have the opportunity to adjust that for one more year in advance every year. So every year, we will update a 5-year outlook plan, but we will have an annual plan that Mr. Cooper and his team will bring for presentation and approval annually. So you will have the year ahead of what projects are going to be targeted, as well as a 5-year outlook. That can be part of an annual reporting process.
So is the thought that these are already embedded operational goals? So does it really need to be a board goal as well? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Right, exactly, because a lot of this was achieved with the data landscape activity. And then it also includes student achievement that's being tracked by our strategic plan that we have to update annually. So that's what Dr. Osborne-Smith has been working on. Dr. Phillips is tracking our data each year. So we will be giving you a year-by-year update on where we are currently compared to what our goals were for annual growth. So we've got something that's addressing finances. We've got something that's addressing student achievement. We've got a plan for addressing our facilities. We've even got a technology refurbishment plan that comes along with technology beliefs that's coming soon. So if there's anything that we're not addressing that's here, I want to make sure that we are able to address it specifically. But I think the things that are outlined here, we've already got a plan for giving you regular updates for those, unless there's something that we haven't included in the data landscape that we need to.
Right.
Go
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I guess the question that I have is, should our board goals align with what you're already providing, like on a monthly basis?
And what we're providing was driven by the board. So you've created that plan for us, and now we're committing to bringing you these regular updates.
And thank you. And here's the antecedent part. Here's the prologue to this whole discussion. As a board, you did not have any plan for spending beyond 1 year. You should have at least a 5-year financial plan. You didn't have a facilities plan beyond 1 year. You didn't have a technology plan beyond what you were going to purchase. Right. For whom? At what cost? With what outcome? So the original intent, way back when, before Dr. Price came, was that this board always needs to keep a 5-year financial, facilities, and technology plan. And so I think we got apples and oranges mixed up here with putting the measures of progress in with the fact we don't have a plan yet. We don't have anything to measure. So that's just a little contextual clarity that I hope will help, whether the goal stays in here or out. For the board, you need to lead the district in these documents.
So should it say by March 2020, maybe not by March 2026, every year the board will ensure that the 5-year plans are updated and applied, or something to that nature?
Yes. Oh, I like that.
Yep.
Yes.
But keep in mind, this is a 1-year goal, essentially, that will update again the next year. So it's just focused on the next year. But making sure that it's extended out 5 years. Yeah, I think I understand what Dr. Pesaway is saying, too. We need to ensure that there is a plan that's been developed, which is already in process, but that's part of our goal, is to ensure that that occurs.
And to go back to Mr. Rice's question, the more we are aligned, the more we're already going to be doing this work anyway.
Right.
So it's part of our nature. It's part of what we do.
So we need to update the language for Ms. Halliday. I mean, so what?
Kenzie, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, she just said update and apply each year.
Roll back that.
Can we just roll back the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
As you've been talking, I've kind of been crafting a little bit. Tell me how this sounds. The board will receive annual progress reviews to ensure resources are aligned according to a 5-year long-term growth plan, according to the data landscape deliverables.
I kind of like specifying the 5-year financial facilities and
Yeah, I do
technology
too.
Okay.
plans.
I'm thinking each year the board will maintain a comprehensive 5-year financial facilities and technology strategic plan with annual progress reviews.
I think the goal, though, is we're starting this. So we're going to develop this 5-year plan starting this year. And then each year we can talk about updating if we need to. But right now our goal is just get a plan in place. So I kind of like the original wording. I think it meets the intent.
With this being board goals for the 25-26 year, our goals are so by the end of the next school year, we will have the comprehensive 5-year financial facilities and technology strategic plan. Then after that, with annual progress reviews to ensure that the
I think we're
resources-
saying the same thing,
Yeah.
just with
I think
different
so.
words.
So should we just keep the original statement? Is March 2026 an okay time
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that?
Yes, ma'am. It will align with the efforts that we're already putting in place, and it will be in alignment with the data landscape activity as well. So it's all aligned with what's been planned. It hasn't been developed yet, but it's aligned with what's been planned.
I would just like to see us make sure we say equal access to students in all areas of the district.
Yes, so Ms. Halliday, that first original thing, keeping that there, but at the end where it says to ensure resources are aligned to support high-quality learning environments and equal access to students in all areas of the district. So board members, you'll see this as an action item next month on the agenda, but between now and then, Ms. Halliday can send out these notes from tonight. Great, great, great. Okay, we are going to move on to item, sorry, on the wrong page. Ah. Item 11.2, do I hear a reassignment motion?
Madam Chair, I would like to move to replace Ms. Flashnick on the 2018 bond referendum RFP Development Committee with her consent.
Thank you, Ms. McCown and Ms. Flashnick. Do we have any discussion on this?
I would just like to say that after thinking more about it, after our last meeting, for the last 2 years, I've, been pretty passionate about this topic, and I would really like to see it through. And so I met with Ms. Flashnick, and she was kind enough to swap with me. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to being a part of this committee and seeing it through with you, Chris, and you, Nick. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Ms. McCowan, you just signed up for extra work. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Ms. Flashnick, you got a break.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Board, based upon the information we received during the first reading of the 2025-2026 General Fund Operating Budget, Do I hear a motion pertaining to salary considerations?
Madam Chair, I move the board give preliminary approval of the proposed 2025-2026 teacher salary schedule, including all items from the Salary Study Committee recommendations, and with the understanding that such approval is not final until the board passes the fiscal year 26 general fund budget.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can we break this into two? Like, can we talk about the salary schedule first and then the salary study committee's recommendations? Or do we need to do this all as one?
So we've made a motion and have a second, so any discussion is open, so yeah, any
The only thing that
conversation.
gives me hesitation on all salary study committee recommendations is I think that was one of the discussion topics up here about potentially looking at different.
Mr. Pizzuti did ask to
different
see what the
ideas.
dollar amount would be if we decreased the special education stipend was his.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, that.
But actually, hold on, Dr. Price might actually have those numbers already.
So, so if we adjusted the salary, the special education certified retention stipend from 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 to 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000, it would change the total amount estimate from 1,055,164 to 711,803. So that's a savings of approximately $300,000.
Can you repeat those numbers one more time?
The current estimated value is 1,055,164. And if we changed it from 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 supplements to 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 supplements, it would drop the estimated total to 711,803. A difference of $344,000.
And those numbers are for the 25-26 budget, not all 3 years. There would be some people at year one,
That
some
would be
people at year
per
two.
year. It's an estimated value per year.
I'll just go out there and tell you my opinion. I think that we stick with the salary studies. I think our special ed teachers are valuable. I think 300,000 out of an almost $400 million budget is pennies. And I think that for recruitment and retention, it's a no-brainer for me.
I tend to agree that that dollar amount per year for those employees will mean a lot more to them than the potential couple $100,000 savings. I think it's well worth every penny spent. So I support the salary studies recommendation.
Other comments, thoughts?
I guess with this, I think everyone is pretty much good with the teacher's salary schedule, but there are still some questions about other salary study recommendations. So if we approve this and then through the next 2 readings of the budget, it changes, how does that affect what y'all have to do?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question one more time?
So if we approve it the way it is, so y'all can go ahead and get started, to make, we do preliminary action, but then through discussions after the second reading, if something changes in this, how would that affect what y'all have to do on the, HR side?
We would have to adjust what the estimated amount would need to be that we would need to pull over from fund balance. So all of it is an estimation, so if the board chooses to do something different than what's been already presented, we would need to make that adjustment to give you what the new number would be in order to bring a balanced budget.
Mr. Pizzuti, I think that the only question from the Salary Study Committee was related to the special education retention stipend. The other questions that I know Ms. Flashnick had came from the would like to do's.
You're right. Okay. I'm good. That's what I was getting.
Yeah,
Because they were still.
You were
they
right, there were
both
other
on that.
questions, but I
That's
think
what
the
was throwing
only
me
one
off.
from
Okay.
Salary Study was the special education
Okay.
certified retention stipend.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
I guess the only question I had is, so this action that we're taking is to empower HR to be able to move forward with teacher contracts ahead of time before
Well,
that.
so in the past, when we give out teacher contracts, teachers don't know what they're getting paid until officially June. And so this is kind of like revolutionary that we're going to be able to let them know. When did they get their letters?
So contracts will go out Friday, no matter what.
Friday, no matter what.
So this would just be the first time that teachers would more clearly know what they get. They always assume it would be no worse than the year prior. I mean, that's the assumption always, right? We hope it would not be any less than they made the year before. This would be the first year that the board would be taking a nice proactive stance to say, this is a stance we're taking to value you, and this is what we hope to pay you next year, which I think would, be a really proactive stance for our teachers to say we're putting value in your work, and this is what we'd like to offer next year. It's not something they've ever known before when they've signed, and that would be a huge value statement, I think, for them.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in agreement. I like all of these. I do have a quick question about the teacher salaries. What are we doing about the ones that are highlighted in the teal color if we approve this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I was answering a question. Okay.
You're off the hook.
Maybe Lost Nose goes on that one, but Lindsay's going to fix me if I'm wrong. The teal salary, if it's the cell is highlighted in teal, the amount you see in that cell is the hold harmless amount. So that might be slightly above what that 1.1% increase would be, but it's telling you what the amount would be for that salary cell for next year, meaning that we're holding that cell harmless.
And while you're there, I don't know who will answer this, but because the state is getting rid of the bachelor's plus 18, just clarifying that our teachers that are currently at that level will stay, but any new going forward won't.
That is correct. We plan on grandfathering those teachers in.
Okay.
And it is our assumption, we have not received clarification on that. They will not be awarding any further bachelor's plus 18, so we should not be receiving any new incoming ones. So we wouldn't be awarding any new ones. That's our assumption. We have not received that clarification yet. But yes, we would continue to grandfather those in. And the reason to further clarify kind of the teal, that's because that retention step, we're also removing that to try to further clean up those scale discrepancies. So.
So board, we currently have a motion on the table. Ms. Shealy, do you mind reading your motion again?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the board give preliminary approval of the proposed 2025-26 teacher salary schedule, including all items from the Salary Study Committee's recommendation, with the understanding that such approval is not final until the board passes the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget.
Thank you. We also have a second. So if there's no more discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to consider a waiver for the district to conduct an internal principal induction program?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize administration to submit a waiver application to secure approval from the South Carolina Department of Education to allow the district to conduct an internal principal induction program.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I will now turn it over to Ms. Natalie Osborne-Smith, or Dr.
It's good. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a critical aspect of our district's success, which is the development of our school leaders, and specifically our principals. And the appointment of school principals is probably one of our most critical personnel decisions that we make. It impacts vision of the district, it impacts instruction, as we've talked about with APs, and around the learning environment, which are all essential to student success. And so state law, really Regulation 43-167, mandates that the State Department offer a year-long principal induction program for first-year principals. And while that state-level program certainly offers valuable exposure to general leadership principles like instructional leadership, school culture, as well as legal considerations, the success of our new principals in Lexington 1 requires a deeper understanding of our instructional practices, our technical core, and our school work plan process. Additionally, our new principals require a more in-depth understanding of our operational policies. Speaking to what you heard Mr. Dixon talk about, that includes things with finance, human resources, student administration, and safety. And ultimately, a district-based program will more effectively equip our new principals to improve teaching and learning, to manage the operations you heard them talk about, and to build that positive school culture and relationship with families that we know is important to the board of Lexington 1 and to our leaders in Lexington 1. So the question is, how do we provide something like that? Well, Regulation 43-167 specifically states that districts developing their own program in lieu of the state's program must secure approval for it. And so what we brought to you today, to the board for your consideration and approval tonight, is our proposed principal induction program, which would be the alternative to the state's program. You will see outlined on the screen several key focus areas, all specifically designed to address the benefits that I already kind of described to you of a district-led initiative. But a crucial next step for us to making this a reality is asking for you to formally allow us to ask for this waiver from the State Department. The waiver would exempt us from that state-facilitated principal induction program, which is currently required by the regulation. So we're requesting your formal approval of both the waiver and our program. And once you do that, then I get to submit it to the State Department, and we will then request their review and approval of our waiver and the program. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have, but this is one tiny piece of a much larger leadership development program that we have in the district for all leaders, including principals, APs, and teacher leaders.
Thank you, board. Do you have questions?
I just was wondering, how has it been that this has been around for however long we're just finding out about it? Just wondering, how did it come about?
That we're coming today. So it's been around since 2000, I think, that the State Department has had to have a principal induction program. And it really...
the waiver, though.
But the waiver has always been part of the regulation.
Right.
So
Okay.
It really has been from feedback from our new principals who are going through the program. It's not that they don't value the experience. They really like the networking that it allows, but it also takes them out of their building for a considerable amount of time throughout the school year. And they need the district base, like the deeper learning that we can provide to them that allows them to make decisions much more quickly instead of, okay, wait a minute, I heard this at the state, well, now let me go check with Ms. Price to see, can I do this with human resources? It just takes some of that time and decision-making for new people. It helps us to make their decision-making more efficient.
Cool. So you heard them, and
We heard them. They said, Natalie, we believe that the district can do this better. Can you do it for us? And this would be, Mr. Casey Calhoun would help with that. Ms. Nicole Mitchell would help with that. All of senior leaders would help. This would be a district's investment into our newest leaders.
Cool. Thank you for your work.
So will the new principals be required to take this one, or will they have the option of doing the state or this one?
Well, they would do ours unless we were directed for them to do the state's.
Well, the state is incorporated in ours anyways. We have to hit.
All of the content, yes, all of the content that's based in the regulation, we already have built into the plan we presented to you.
So this is a program we'll get the waiver, and once that's approved, we'll develop the program, or is the program already developed internally?
So it's a mix. What I've given to you this evening is basically a matrix, I don't want to continue to build out the program until we get the approval. And so what you have are like the major topics, some of the resources that we would lean into, and of course, all of the permission from each of the senior leaders to help present. But once we get the check mark from the State Department and from the board, we'll start planning sessions.
Thank you so much. Board members, do you have any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of approving the renewal of an innovative, oh, wrong one. Oh my gosh. All those in favor of considering a waiver for the district to conduct an internal principal induction program, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Guess it's past my bedtime. Whew. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve renewal of an innovative course application for Chinese Honors 5?
Madam Chair, I move to approve renewal of an innovative course application for Chinese Honors 5, a course that is part of the Chinese immersion sequence in Lexington 1 schools.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Ms. Mary Gaskins, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So earlier this year, I brought forward some courses that the board needed to approve, and those were all for elective credit. So this application tonight is required if we're seeking for credit outside of elective credit. So this would be for a world language credit. Chinese 5 is not currently in the South Carolina Coding Manual. Interestingly enough, we do have a level 5 course for all other languages available at the state level. So this is the same course that we offer in other languages, just made available to our immersion students, and it's a renewal application required every 3 years.
Thank you. Board, do you have any questions?
So this is another place where we exceed the state. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve policy IHBG and IHBGR homeschooling?
Madam Chair, I move to approve policy IHBG, IHBGR homeschooling.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Gaskins?
So since first reading, I made one minor adjustment just to make sure the language was consistent with options 2 and 3 in both the policy and administrative rule. Otherwise, I've not received any feedback or questions, but I'm happy to answer any tonight if you have them.
Board members, do you have any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2026-2027 academic calendar as presented by the calendar committee?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the 26-27 academic calendar as presented by the calendar committee with the exclusion of collaborative planning days, which will be voted on at a later date.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Flashnick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzuti. All right, is there any discussion? Ms. Gaskins?
Sure. So I'm happy to walk back through the calendar again if you'd like me to this month. One thing I failed to mention last month when I talked about the recommendations of the calendar committee, we have at least one representative from every school in the district and many of the central services departments on that committee. After we've had our first meeting and looked at a draft calendar, they go back to each school or department, present to the full staff, get feedback from every staff member, and then complete a survey. So the ideas and recommendations from the calendar committee don't just come from those serving on the committee, but stakeholders throughout the district. So I wanted to make that point tonight. And I understand that we have some legislation at play that could impact our professional development days and board policy, and so we want to watch that play out this legislative season before we make decisions about our collaborative planning days and make sure our policy is in alignment with that. So happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Board members?
No, I would say just to clarify that if we were to accept a policy right now, we would literally be changing it like as soon as the legislature comes out with the new policy, if the act passes, that's going through the legislature right now.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Right, so we're not just saying no to collaborative planning. We're waiting to hear what comes from the State House and then figure out how do we comply with what the
Correct.
State House has.
There's a part in our policy that explains how the 10 non-instructional days that are a part of a teacher's contract or assigned. And that determination is being discussed right now while the legislature's in session. So it has the potential to change, and if it does, and we make a change to the policy now, we'll go through that process and then have to do it all over again this summer if the change goes through, so.
The one question that I do have for the public, if we approve this, will they see a 26-27 academic calendar? Is there a way for us to make sure that it's just clear that the board has made a decision to come back and add dates later so nobody's caught off guard? That they think that that's the 26-27 academic calendar as is, never going to change?
I just confirmed with Ms. Roof that that will be possible for us to make that note on the calendar when we post it on the website.
All right, great discussion, board. We have a motion to approve the 2026-2027 academic calendar as presented by the calendar committee with the exclusion of collaborative planning days to be added at a later date. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve policy BAA board self-evaluation?
Madam Chair, I move to approve policy BAA board self-evaluation.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any discussion? Y'all, all it's doing is it's changing it from July to say in the fall of each year. If there's no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. All right, moving on to item 12.0. On April 9th, Ms. McCown and I attended the 2025 Day at the Capitol, sponsored by the South Carolina School Boards Association. And Ms. McCown, do you have any comments to give about our day?
Not really.
Well, I'll just on it. You know what, Ms. McCown, it's
I
all
enjoyed
good.
your company. It was nice to see our
enjoyed your company.
legislators, and we talk to them all the time. At least I do. So it was great.
I too was very thankful for our good relationships with our delegation, because there were many that the only time during the year that they really get a face-to-face with their local delegation is the day at the Capitol. So that's really something that's valuable that our board members have. Another thing is, it's really not lost on me how fortunate we are here in Lexington 1 that tonight we approved a salary schedule that's $3,000 above the state minimum that's probably going to be recommended. And so many school boards were discussing, that they pay what the minimum salary schedule is from the state. And so I just felt grateful when we had those discussions. So it was all in all a nice day. Weather was good too. So, all right. Mr. Pizzuti.
Mm-hmm.
I will let you answer those couple questions about part 5 of our Great on Their Behalf book.
No problem. So my section was how to align resources, which is perfect during budget talks. And so the one of the questions is, what concept or quote in this section stood out to you? And it literally was kind of the very beginning of the section. But the quote is, every teacher's, principal's, superintendent's, and board member's actions and decisions have an effect on student outcomes. So that's what really made me start thinking about that, we're up here making decisions, and kind of what this book says, and you've heard me say it tonight. If we're not really making these decisions based on what the student outcomes can be, yes, there's some administrative stuff we got to make decisions on. But some of the main stuff we do, it should always be for the students and what the outcome is going to be. And so another thing was, in your opinion, what were the important implications for our district in this section of the book? I actually wrote this down so I remember it. So my thoughts were, in everything we do as a school board, it must be based on the goals and the guardrails of the district that implements the student outcome. So if we're not working towards that, then we're not really doing what we're up here supposed to be doing. So that's what I took from my section. They really hit me that, it's not just our decisions and outcomes, but it's every person in the district's decisions. They all have an effect on the students. So it kind of trickles down. So from trickles up, top to bottom. So
Thank you so much, Mr. Pizzuti. April is and has already been a busy month, and throughout the month, recognition days will be celebrated for many of our employees. On behalf of the board, we would like to recognize the librarians, paraprofessionals, assistant principals, bus drivers, and administrative professionals who work so hard for our students in the district each and every day. Prior to break, the White Knoll High School hosted the Region 7 Special Olympics, and in recognition of the month of the military child, the district had a Purple Up Day. We enjoyed seeing many social media posts with our employees wearing purple in support of our military families. The month will come to an end with Military Signing Day for seniors who have committed to the armed forces. This Friday, we will celebrate with the seniors who will be graduating from the College Center at a special stole ceremony. Spring is such an amazing time in Lexington County School District 1. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair, before we leave, I would like to mention that our fellow board member, Mr. Anderson, is not here tonight. Just please be with him and any health issues he is dealing with right now, as I think he's in good hands now, but I think earlier it was a little bit out there. So just keep him in your prayers.
All right. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.